To order, welcome to the April 28th, 2014 legislative session of the Salisbury City Council. Want to thank all of our guests for being here. We have a crowd here this evening. I'm happy to see that. I'd also want to take just a second to do a few things. One, just if you happen to have a cell phone on, if you wouldn't mind putting that on silent or vibrate, and if you have to take an important call, if you wouldn't mind doing so out in the hallway, we'd appreciate it. For everyone who hasn't been here before, the emergency exits are out the door to your right and then a right, and then there's a secondary exit out the door to your right and then a left past the elevator. I want to just take note for a second and mention that we had a fantastic Salisbury Festival this past week, and I want to applaud the Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce, all the patrons and people that came out, and the City of Salisbury Public Works staff, the Mayor's Office staff, the Police Department and Fire Department for everything they did to support, and incredible. Yes, one of our police officers out in the hallway. You did a fantastic job. Just a fantastic job. And they really deserve our congratulations. And this is exactly the type of thing that we want in our city and want in our community, is those types of events. So I will ask everyone now to please stand with me for the invocation of a moment of silence, and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right, so our first agenda item this evening is we have the United Way with us, I believe, to present a plaque. Mayor Ironton and... Yep. Yeah, if you would, please. Come forward.
Come on down.
Come on down. The price is right.
Good evening. Good evening. Members of the council, city administrator, our mayor, and those in the audience. I'm Kathleen Momay, and it is my honor to be here tonight to celebrate the employees of the city of Salisbury. For supporting our local United Way. We cover 4 counties, and I must say, in my 20 years now with United Way, I know Shani's having a hard time because we just talked about the fact that when I started at Big Brothers Big Sisters, she was my first administrative assistant and did a great job, by the way. But beyond that 20 years, this year now at United Way was the best year our local United Way has ever had. We raised over $1.6 million. And I say we because it's everyone who's given in the community. We have a very small staff, and it's about people in our community who feel connected and know that we look out to make sure dollars go for Meals on Wheels and for people who have no insurance who need hospice care. Not to mention the 54 other programs that we fund. But it is every employee's contribution, and so many people give $1 a week, and it's because of people like the employees that work for the city of Salisbury that have made a difference. This past year, of that $1.6 million, we have employees from the city of Salisbury that raised over $3,000. And I think they deserve a hand for that $3,000. We are grateful for the partnership with the city and look forward to making more of a difference as the years go on. It's our 70th year this year, so you never know what we could do in the next 5 years at 75. But before we do want to also celebrate the departments that have given $500 or more from the city of Salisbury. And with that, representing all of the departments. I'm going to get them to come up. Okay. We have the City of Salisbury Public Works. Thank you. We have our City of Salisbury Police Department. He has connections, he'll get that. City of Salisbury Community Development. And on behalf of the United Way to the entire city of Salisbury, to Mayor Ireton, thank you very much.
We just want to say to Mrs. Momay how excited we are every time the sheets come into my office. Sherelle McBride, who handles that every year, so excited to get that out of there. And it's pretty amazing because if that department did over $500, that's a department of 2, community development is. So that is a pretty amazing thing for the 2 of you, Debbie, and your department. So thank you so much. So on behalf of all of our employees, our city council, again, I guess it's whatever we do to the least among us. This is how we can help, and we're glad to do it every year. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Bless you all.
Kathleen, thank you, and congratulations to an incredible year, incredible 70th year. Next, I will invite our guest, Heather Towers from the Community Foundation of the Eastern Shore, to come forward. It's our community organization presentation for this evening.
Thank you for having me, City Council staff, and everyone that came today, and our mayor. I'm not usually so somber, but I'm suffering from the typical Eastern Shore allergies. Right. So if I sound a little dejected right now, I'm really not. I'm totally excited and glad to be here and talk to you. Like the United Way, who is one of our partners in the community, we are a public charity. Some of you are familiar with us. Some of you are existing nonprofit partners. And I wanted to talk a little bit today about our work for those of you that aren't familiar with us, and specifically share a program that's open right now. There are handouts on the table over there if this sounds like a program that you would be interested in. So at the Community Foundation, we're basically a local charity that empowers donors to make a difference in a certain geographical region. Our region is the Lower Eastern Shore, Somerset, Wicomico, and Worcester counties. Occasionally, our grant making extends into counties outside of that area. Last year, we paid grants of $5.4 million in the general area. The exciting work that I get to do is in the programs department at the foundation. And in our programs area, we administer training programs, grant funding, and all kinds of other fun things. So let's talk a little bit about our volunteer academy. That is an opportunity that we've had for 2 years now. This will be our 3rd year. And over the last 2 years, we were able to educate volunteers that were interested in engaging in their community. So these are people that may be part of their church, people that may be a part of their Boy Scouts, their Girl Scouts troop, maybe a school PTA, athletic clubs, any kind of group. But there's someone that wanted to do a little bit more and needed that extra help, needed some training, wanted to know how to plan an event, how to market or share the word about their event, how to get other volunteers interested in their event, how to get funds for their event, and so that's the kind of program that this is. There are a couple of mandatory training sessions over the summer, and then there's just a slew of optional choices depending on how far you really want to engage. So we don't require you to engage in a project, but we're there for you if you do decide to engage. If you partner with the types of organizations that we're allowed to fund, which are 501c3s, faith-based groups, and government organizations, then you can be eligible for our funding, and we have up to $1,000 per project in a competitive pool for these. So that's something that's really exciting. So if you're interested, we have an application that you can fill out. It's over there, along with some information. What we do when you come, like I said, is just teach you kind of the whole concept. And then you can either take it and run with it, or you can stay with us through the summer and engage towards your project. So if that's something that you might be interested in, check that out. On the sheet, you'll find on the very bottom our phone number and our website, which you can visit for more information. It's www.cfes.org for those that are interested. And just a little bit about the last couple of years in the academy. We engaged 225 volunteers, served over 500 people, and gave out over $10,000 in grant funds just for those projects. And these were projects that covered a wide variety of interest areas, from youth education to land conservation to vulnerable populations, and just a wide range. So that's what I wanted to share today. I appreciate you for having me. I'll be around for a few minutes if anyone has any questions, and you can pick up our sheet over there.
Heather, can you share a phone number?
Yes, our phone number is it not on the back? It got taken off. It's 410-742-9911, and you can ask for me.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
And one other thing, the visioning workshops, has a date in June and July been identified for those, or is that to be determined?
It's to be determined. Once we accept the cohort, then we're going to decide what's best for you. And one other thing that I didn't mention, actually, thanks for the reminder, we've opened this year to youth applicants. So if you're, like I said, if you're in the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts and you have to do like a culminating project, that you might be a good candidate, and we'd be willing to take you in this year. In the past, this has been an adult-only sort of effort, but we really want to broaden engagement in the community, and so you can come through it as 18 and under with an adult. So you could come in with your parent or your sponsoring organization. So that's why we haven't set the actual times yet. We wanted to check on everyone's availability for whatever cohort we get this year. We're accepting applications for 2 more weeks also.
Okay. So get those applications in.
Yes, please do. Or give us a call if you have any questions.
Thanks so much, Heather.
Thank you.
Thank you. We also have one other community organization presentation this evening. I'm going to invite Pastor Jason Heil from Emmanuel Wesleyan Church to come forward, if you wouldn't mind, and talk to us about your Adopt a Block program.
Sure. First of all, on behalf of Emmanuel Wesleyan Church, we want to thank the City Councilman and Mayor for having us tonight, and just thank you guys from Emmanuel for coming out and supporting our outreach. Adopt the Block is a new outreach we started at our church called Adopt a Block, and one of our goals is to get into the community, and we have actually launched 2 weeks ago into the community around the Church Street area, Charles Street, Martin Street, Baker Street, Naylor Street, and the goal is to start adopting blocks, finding needs in the community, and meeting needs and building relationships on a consistent basis. We believe that consistency is the key to building relationships, and as we begin to meet physical needs, then we begin to meet spiritual needs in the addictions of homelessness and hunger relief, addictions. And our church works closely with a program in Seaford with Teen Challenge. It's a year-long faith-based organization for people who are struggling with drug addictions. And so our mission is to connect unchurched people through a relationship with Christ, and to build relationships within our community by providing those long-term needs and short-term needs as well in those areas of homelessness, as I said before, hunger relief, addictions. And our vision is we want to build a community of resilient people whose lives have been redeemed by God's love. And one of the ways we do that is we, as the body of Christ, go out into our community and we just serve our community. And that's basically what we're there to do, is just to serve them and be examples of that love that we have been given and shown, and to restore broken lives. And our goal within the next few years is we want to continue to adopt blocks all throughout the city of Salisbury, Delaware Avenue, Doverdale, some of our worst crime areas. Other churches that have implemented the program, they've seen crime drop considerably within a 3-year period of 73%, I believe it is. And so as we want to work directly closely with the city of Salisbury, I know we are involved in the High Point Initiative and the Safe Streets initiative to try to reduce crime, and that is our goal, to clean up our streets. And so we have teams that go out into these neighborhoods. We pick up trash. We give out boxes of food. Over the last 2 weeks, we initially launched April 12th. Is that right? April 12th. And we've been going out every other Saturday into the community. We've given out over probably 160 boxes of food to families that are in need. We're seeing needs arise in the area of clothing, hygiene products, baby clothes, diapers, things of that sort. And so there's just so many needs out there in the community. And our motto for Adopt a Block is find a need and fill it, and find a hurt and heal it. And that is our mission with Adopt a Block and in our community. And so I would just want to, as you can see, we had some pictures. Ariane worked hard on a little poster just to show some of our efforts in the last 2 weeks of some of the stuff we've done, the blocks that we've adopted around the Church Street area. And on May 10th, following 2 weeks, or well, a little less than 2 weeks, but on May 10th, we're launching a block party. We'll be giving out hot dogs. There's a fire truck from Station 2, I believe, that's coming for the kids. And we want to try to build children's activities in the communities, that when we go out, we begin to find kids' activities, mentor kids, and try to put a positive influence into our children, because they are the next generation, we believe. And so, like I said, we'll paint stuff, clean up our neighborhood, and just continue to find needs and meet them. Mark, is there anything you want to add? You got
Just like to say, again, thank you for allowing a great group of people. Let's have them stand. We have some members of the church here now that come out every week, and they work really hard. But we're looking, and we're probably going to... Oh, go ahead.
Thank you.
And working with Pastor Jason here, one thing we did notice is that on Church Street area, and Tim, you probably realize this too, they need a playground. And we've been doing surveys, and we would like to help initiate this. So I'm not sure where the city is right now on what they're doing with some of the empty lots over there, but we're very interested in creating a playground. So if we can work with the city to get this playground done someplace over there on that Church Street area, we're willing and ready to do this.
Mark, your timing's impeccable. We are not only entering into, tonight we'll be talking about our capital improvements plan, our 5-year plan for capital projects like parks and things like that. But on top of that, we are, I think, at a time when there are opportunities that we're looking at. I mean, there's the Linens of the Week property, for example, which isn't that close, but isn't terribly far away either, which presents an opportunity, and I know there are other properties. The Green SBY group, the Green Salisbury group, has also been meeting and discussing reusing vacant urban land for community building strategies, and that's definitely one that I think would be fantastic.
Good, so we're just in time.
Just in time.
Yeah.
We've actually had conversations with Stop the Violence and for their needs, and looking at the Linens of the Week property. I'd like to see a community center go in there with playgrounds and for indoor and outdoor all weather, and maybe some other services, community services offered there. Room for parenting classes and things like that.
And as Pastor Jason said, this is not just a one-time thing. This is continually going on. So we encourage other churches to step up also.
Could you give some more information about the block party, the date and time? And
Sure. It's May 10th. It'll be held in the vacant lot adjacent from the Christian shelter. We kind of chose this particular area to start because we've been doing a lot of work over the years with the Christian shelter, and so I've kind of already have an established relationship with some of the people that come in and out of that community, and felt like that was a good place to launch for our first block because of the relationships that had been built. And we do work closely with the Christian shelter, and they've been gracious enough to let us use their lot for the block party. But again, it'll be May 10th from 11 to 2 p.m. And we invite you guys out. Like I said, we'll be handing out hot dogs and baked goods and food and water, and just getting to know our community, and there'll be some live entertainment and things of that sort. So,
Fantastic. Pastor Jason, thank you.
thank you.
We appreciate it. And thank you all for being here. We're grateful. If it wasn't obvious, I thought I'd just call attention to the fact that, both from Kathleen's fantastic work, and Heather, your great work, and Jason and Mark, your congregation, your great work. I mean, 3 different ways that our community is serving itself and lifting itself up, and filling those needs and addressing that hurt, and it's just incredible So we're grateful, and this is why we do this, so that you can share it and that other people can learn about it and participate in it and support it and get involved in it. You're all doing incredible work, and it's certainly not all government doing that great work. It's the community. So we're really grateful. We appreciate it, and thank you for being here and sharing it with us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Now we'll move on to the fun stuff. I will entertain. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. This is just to remind folks that not this coming Saturday, which is May 3rd, but the following Saturday, May 10th, is the United States Postal Service Fight Hunger program. So leave canned goods in a bag or a box on your front stoop or near the mailbox, and the Postal Service worker, the mailman or mailwoman, will pick those up, put them in their truck, and take them to the Maryland Food Bank over on what bridge road? I forgot the name of the road. Wastegate Road. Thank you very much. Yes. But they'll be delivered by the United States Postal Service to Wastegate Road, and they'll be part of the Maryland Food Bank, and it'll go towards helping people have enough to eat every day. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So I will now entertain a motion to adopt the legislative agenda as presented.
So moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Motion by Ms. Shields, second by Ms. Mitchell. All right. Any discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to remove the April 7th work session and the April 14th legislative session minutes for corrections. And Mr. Aylesworth is here from Legit. I don't know if we want to remove that or just allow him to say something after the consent agenda.
We can just do that right after,
Okay.
as long as there aren't any issues with the.
No.
Okay.
If we could place those directly after the consent agenda.
Which two was it? It was the April.
April 7th work session and the April 14th legislative session.
Okay. All right. So, any objection to moving those? All right, then, let's see. Would you mind making that as an amendment? Or?
You don't need to for the
Oh,
consent agenda.
okay.
Just,
Apologize.
that's okay.
All right.
We'll
then
train you yet.
I will,
It's been a while, too.
all right, I will entertain a motion to, excuse me.
We don't need a motion.
Oh, that's right. Adopt the
Just
legislative agenda as amended. Please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay, so the first item, actually, before we even get into the agendas, I'll ask Mr. Aylesworth if you wouldn't mind coming forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I tell you, those were hard acts to follow tonight. It's really nice to
You're doing great work too, we know it.
see great things going on here. I'm here tonight to make a training grant presentation, which will be the sixth one we've given over the last few years, and which I'm happy to do. In addition to that, I wanted to point out to the council that the Local Government Trust is owned by you, all the members. I'm just a staff person who directs a staff of 30. And just want to thank you for your membership in the program. And because of your longstanding participation and good experience, you all are receiving membership credits off your premium this year of about 22.5%. So I want to thank you. And that's in addition, so it equals to about $105,000 in credits.
Well, I know the citizens of Salisbury are grateful for that.
Yeah, well,
That's fantastic.
I'm happy to do that. Well, anyway, I'm here tonight to do a training grant presentation in the amount of $2,400 for a snowplow driving simulation. This is a program that several of our other members have partaken in, and everyone that's done it says it's been great work. Rockville did it, Elkin did it, Cecil County did it, and they've all said it was just a wonderful program, and I'm glad that the city applied for it, and glad that our risk management committee awarded it. So, Mr. President, I'd like to check you.
All right, excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. We're grateful.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Mr. Aylesworth.
I just want to know if I can come play in the simulator.
If you can develop that, we certainly would like to use it.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Ms. Nichols? Good evening. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
On the consent agenda this evening, we have the April 7th, 2014 special meeting minutes, resolution number 2389, accepting a donation from Maria Raphael for a memorial park bench in the Salisbury City Park, resolution number 2390, accepting those funds awarded through a grant from the local government insurance trust to provide vehicle operations simulator training, as we were just told about, for public works snowplow operators. And resolution number 2391, accepting funds from the Wacomico County Narcotics Task Force to purchase equipment and/or fund training for officers, thereby enhancing law enforcement efforts to provide a safer environment for the citizens of Salisbury and Wacomico County. And that's it on the consent agenda.
Great. Okay. All right. Any questions, any discussion? All right. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Ms. Mitchell, I didn't hear you, did you?
Yes.
Okay.
Sore throat, I'm sorry. I'm not.
That's quite all right. Okay, next item on our agenda, I'll entertain a motion to approve the April 7th work session minutes.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a couple of amendments. One on page 6, I'm sorry, line 58 of the work session minutes for April 7th. Just need to close the parentheses, the parentheses there. Then on line 86, make a motion to insert consensus between unanimous and to advance. So it would read, council reached unanimous consensus to advance the resolution. Included in that motion would also be a change on line 100 to strike budget amendment and replace it with resolution, as that was a resolution and not a budget amendment.
Okay. All right, is there a second for the amendment?
Hold on for a second.
Okay. Seconded by Mr. Spies. Any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
And any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the April 7th, 2014 work session minutes as amended, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Okay. I'll now entertain a motion to adopt the April 14th legislative session minutes.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Okay. A motion and a second. Discussion?
Yes, an amendment on line, where does this go, 74. In the acknowledgement about Scout Cuppet, Eagle Scout Cuppet's project, we need to insert that he actually built a new sign at that entrance. This reads like he just planted flowers there. That was a part of it, but that was the small part, the easy part. So on line 74 to insert built a new sign and between had and planted.
Had and planted. Okay.
And I think that is it, so I will make that motion. That's it for those minutes.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. I heard Mr. Spies. All right, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the amendment, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
And any other items, any other discussion, changes? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of the amended April 14th, 2014 legislative session minutes, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Okay. Now entertain a motion to approve the award of bids.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Shields, seconded by Mr. Spies. Ms. Miller, how are you?
Great, thank you. Good evening, council.
Evening.
The first item on the agenda tonight is the award of bid that's being carried over from the April 14th legislative session. It was the recommendation for award of bid RFP 06-14. That was the utility easement for the radio tower on Marine Road. I was not at that council meeting, but my understanding was there was a question as to were there any structural repairs needed to the tower. We researched it, and we've been told by several sources no, and we did get the structural analysis report that was just done in November 2013 from American Tower Corporation, and it passed.
I think we should add that Mr. Stevenson
I passed
found
that report along to
and
members
sent
of
to council that the work was actually done, that we were so concerned that it was needed. So, we were under the impression that the structure was failing, and I guess at some point it was, and that work was done. So, thank you. Appreciate you all looking into that.
You bet.
Any questions on that item? Ms. Miller? Okay.
All right. The second item this evening is the recommendation for award of bid RFP 04-14. It's the engineering design for the Main Street Master Plan. The City of Salisbury Internal Services Department Procurement Division received a request from the Salisbury Public Works Department to solicit bids for the engineering design for the Main Street Master Plan project. The scope of this work in the proposal included engineering, landscape architecture, geotechnical, surveying, traffic design, grant application, and bidding for all phases of the streetscape project along Main Street from Route 13 to Mill Street. The procurement division followed standard bid practices by advertising in the Daily Times, on the City of Salisbury's website, utilizing the city's vendor list, and advertising on the State of Maryland's website, eMaryland Marketplace. A total of 6 firms submitted a bid by the due date and time of January 31st. An initial review of the proposals by the procurement department concluded that all submittals were responsive and responsible. After such determination, the proposals were evaluated by a 5-person selection committee utilizing a weighted average scoring method as defined in the bid documents. The top 3 firms were then invited to and participate in a debriefing interview at the City of Salisbury. Based on the initial ranking, the detail of which was included in your packet, and the debriefing interviews, A. Morton Thomas and Associates is recommended to be chosen as the successful bidder. The Procurement Division requests Council's approval to award the contract for RFP 04-14 to A. Morton Thomas and Associates in the amount of $393,600. Sufficient funds have been confirmed by the Procurement Department. Once awarded, the project design is expected to take 1 year from the date of notice to proceed, with an additional 3 months to complete the bidding services as defined in the RFP. While the construction of the Main Street Master Plan is not a part of this award, the anticipated start date would be fiscal year 2016, or approximately July 2015.
Okay, a couple questions. That timeline, the approximate 1-year project design and 3 additional months to complete bidding services. Did A. Morton Thomas Associates indicate that they could meet the recommended or anticipated timeline, the start date of July 2015?
Do you remember, Amanda?
Good evening.
Evening.
Yes, AMT stated that they could do the design within 1 year.
Okay.
So they confirmed that timeline.
Okay, great. I know there was some question as to the order of phasing. I know this is the schematic plan from Urban Salisbury was a 2009 plan, and phase 1 was indicated as the plaza, phase 2 as East Main Street, and phase 3 is the Government Plaza plus
Correct.
Division Street. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I think AMT indicated in their proposal that let us sort out the phasing rather than dictating the phasing. Is that
Well, and this
likely
contract would be design of all 3 phases. So everything, all 3 phases will be designed by this time next year, essentially in 1 year. It's anticipated that we'll bid Phase 2 first, which is essentially East Main Street from Route 13 to Division Street, but when we get into the design, we'll work that out in a little bit more detail and where exactly that phase stops.
Okay, understood. And, let's see. The fee, their fee was, I see, lower than, it was the lowest fee, is that right?
No, there
No.
was, I believe, 2 firms that were lower,
Okay,
but they were all within our
they were the
budget.
highest scoring, I
Yes.
guess that's what it was, okay,
4 of the 6 firms were well within our budget.
okay. Given that their fee is lower, was their scope the same?
The scope of all of these firms was the same.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Okay. It's the only question I have.
I have a question. Is the design phase, will the council have any input on what they want to see in
Yes.
the design?
Yes, thank you for asking. They will present to the council at 2 different work sessions.
Because the plaza, I've been involved in Princess Anne, the streetscape design down in Princess Anne.
Okay.
But I know several people are concerned about the plaza's design, so.
So in their scope, they will present to council at 2 work sessions. They'll present to the Traffic and Safety Committee and the Central City, the CCDC,
District Committee.
yeah,
Okay.
District Committee.
And
So
I-
they have those already in their scope, so they will be
got some
before you a couple
ideas.
times.
And community engagement was one of the requirements.
Yes.
And I think it's also worth mentioning that even if you look back at the schematic design, there were options almost for the plaza. There was like a proposal A and a proposal B even back in 2009. So
Right.
they hadn't quite ever sorted it out.
Right, right, and that was I had the same question. We had a notice tonight about the skate park design meeting on May 13th, and I guess that had my brain had our brains turning in the same way in terms of input and ideas for that.
The way they based this proposal is that they were designing the schematic plans. They were designing based off of those schematics, but there will be plenty of input from the public.
Well, I think it's really admirable to see, this is a personal interest too, but to see so many design, community-based design workshops involved in process here. I think it's a sign of strength in a community when the process offers opportunities for people to engage throughout, and really an opportunity for everybody who's interested to participate. So
Right, not
I
just
think,
council, yeah.
yeah, I think it's really admirable, and I applaud Public Works and the administration for approaching it that way.
I think it might be useful to, I think you're almost on the same page, but just above the chart there's a paragraph that tells what the criteria were for the choice. And I think the public might like to hear what the criteria were.
Sure.
Would you mind reading that?
No.
Would you like me to?
Experience, qualifications, performance on past projects, price, project approach, size of the vendor, and geographic location of the vendor. All went into the rating scale, and there was a rating scale of 0 to 4 for each, 0 being unacceptable and 4 being superior. That resulted in the composite score given, and then they were ranked based on that. That is definitely worth sharing with the public.
People often wonder, how did they choose them?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
The last item this evening is a declaration of surplus for the storm windows at the Poplar Hill Mansion. The City of Salisbury Internal Services Department Procurement Division received a request from the Community Development Department to declare 40 storm windows from the Poplar Hill Mansion as surplus. These storm windows were replaced with new storm windows through a grant from the Maryland Heritage Areas Authority. Upon declaration of surplus, as approved by Council, the Procurement Department will work with the Community Development Office and Poplar Hill Mansion to pursue a green alternative to disposal, such as recycling the windows or donating them to a local charity.
Any questions on this?
Is there a charity in mind?
There's not yet. That would be maybe our second choice if possible, because maybe some are broken, they're maybe not in good shape, that might not come to fruition. We've talked to at least one local recycler who said they would take them, but I want to check again because so many don't.
The Habitat Restore might be
Possibly.
somewhere to look at, maybe, I don't know.
What are they comprised of? Are these are wood?
I think these are metal
They
framed
are metal
storm
framed,
windows.
okay.
Oh,
So aluminum framed, probably okay. So there's a recycling value as well as a reuse value.
Recycling, hopefully, if we can just keep them out of the landfill.
We're talking about the community garden. Some of these might be useful as cold frames if they're aluminum and glass, they won't break down.
Could we hold on to them temporarily?
take a
as
few of
we
them?
figure out where they're going?
I guess
what's
we'd
the
have to figure
timeline
out where we would
process?
store them,
Okay,
because I think right now they're kind of in the way.
and they need to get off of their property.
Yeah,
Well,
for
I'm not
weddings
thinking-
and events and
And there are
things.
40 of them. I think 40 is probably more than we would need for the effort. But perhaps maybe choose some of them and
think
put
we
them
can visit.
aside for that.
Not antique, okay.
I think we could visit the Habitat Restore when we're ready for those, for the gardens.
Yeah, perhaps we can,
Buy them back.
yeah, I think that's a great idea. Well, maybe we can talk about that offline, but I think
Sure.
there may be a use, a community use identified.
Okay.
For that. Great. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Then, all in favor of approving the award of bids as presented, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you all. Okay. Let's see, the first resolution of the evening is Resolution 2392. I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2392.
So moved.
All right. Motion by Mr. Spies. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Mitchell. Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Council President, members of the council. Forgive me for having to break from protocol, but it was evident to me that if I did not loosen my tie and remove my jacket, I was going to literally melt and run down into my sheet.
Is that warm in there?
It is warm.
It's warm.
Sleeveless shirt and capris might have been a better option, but I don't know if I would have been able to pull that off or not, so we'll go with
I
this.
highly recommend wearing that next legislative
Oh,
session.
and
Go for it.
one other thing, I don't think I could sleep well tonight if I didn't pass the responsibility of holding on to this $2,400 check to our finance director, Mr. Porter.
It's on camera.
Well, I was going to say, it came to me on camera, and now it's gone on camera. So.
Government at work.
Yes. So moving on with Resolution 2392, it is a resolution of the City of Salisbury to approve the city's consolidated plan for program years 2014 through 2018. The action plan for community development block grant funds for program year 2014, and the 2014 analysis of impediments for fair housing choice. The City of Salisbury is available to receive funds from the Department of Housing and Urban Development because we qualify as an entitlement community. The City of Salisbury may receive those funds if we receive approval from Housing and Urban Development for our consolidated plan, our annual action plan, and our analysis for impediments to fair housing choice. If the City of Salisbury wishes to receive these funds, they must be approved by HUD. And this resolution would authorize the mayor to submit those plans for program year 2014 through 18, the 2014 CDBG action plan, and the 2014 analysis of impediments to fair housing choice to HUD for review and approval. Debbie, I know you've been working with this for a long time, so that's a lot to get out. These monies in the amount of $287,318 would go for the following projects. $57,436 for administration, $100,000 to Salisbury Neighborhood Housing Services for closing costs and down payment assistance grants, Habitat for Humanity of Wycomico County in the amount of $71,300 for housing construction at 200 Naylor Street, Holly Community Incorporated for job training programs to low to moderate income families, elderly, and developmentally disabled in the amount of $24,960. The City of Salisbury to raise blighted properties, in particular 205 Marshall Street and one other property to be named later, in the amount of $19,595, and funding for the City of Salisbury's nuisance code enforcement officer in the Church Street area at $14,000. Again, the total amount is $287,318, and this resolution would authorize the mayor to advance those reports to HUD. As I said, Ms. Stam and Ms. Hussey have been working on this for quite some time. If you wanted Debbie to get into some of the particulars about the meeting dates and that sort of thing, I would ask her to come forward.
Well, folks, I would just say, if you haven't read the CDBG action plan or the consolidated plan, you're missing out on really, I think, interesting presentation of the demographics and the challenges present in our community and how the federal government sees using this particular fund to address those through relatively small, relatively modest grant to our cities and cities, counties, and towns. But I just want to applaud. I want to applaud Ms. Hussey and Ms. Stam for the great work that they did. And this is the first year that I've been here for this, and the first year that I've read these documents. And you know, as Debbie knows, I kind of dug into it and had a lot of questions, but you know, I learned a lot through that process. The application of CDBG funds is limited in what it can be used for. It's very focused and very specific. I shouldn't say limited, focused. And so I learned a lot, and I just thank you for educating me along the way. I have no questions. Any questions?
No, next time I'm happy to see this money coming through for demolition of the blighted properties. And let's put that on our agenda for the next time we have an open moment at a work session, just to find out where we are with the properties. Could we do that?
Demolition, property demolition?
What we've identified as blighted properties that are on the list.
When we have that discussion, I would love to know, I'm told that some years ago we used to do controlled burns. I know that other municipalities do controlled burns, and for some reason we don't do them anymore. Nobody could answer why. Everybody had theories, but no one had an answer as to why. If they were feasible in some cases, obviously in some where they're close by or there's contaminants, that wouldn't be, but might that be an opportunity for some of these blighted properties for elimination, and what's the cost versus demolition? Because it offers a training opportunity to our fire department as well.
I don't think they did control burns in the city. I attended one years ago. I think they were done in the county instead of the city because of the buildings are so close.
Open fires are actually
Yeah,
prohibited.
Yes.
they're prohibited.
Let's check with MDE.
Well, but it's.
You don't burn
it is-
trash.
It is good training though, because.
But you
when
do it in the county, you don't do it in the city. Because
If-
like you said, open fires, you cannot burn trash, leaves, or anything in the city.
Let's check with MDE and get an answer when we schedule that
county.
work session.
Okay. Yeah, I can tell you that, to my knowledge, I don't know that the city's ever done a controlled burn within the city limits. It is typically done in the county. And I'm pleased to be able to report and look forward to being able to follow up. But to tell you that I know that there are less than a handful of properties that are currently slated for demolition in the city of Salisbury. So that speaks volumes to the good work being done by the men and women and neighborhood services and code compliance. But we'd be happy to put that information together for you.
Might I ask also, Mr. Stevenson, if we could get maybe a breakdown of what the costs are when the demolition occurs? I'm particularly interested in what the tipping fees are for the refuse, for the debris.
Okay.
We'll work to schedule this, all of that for one work session discussion.
Okay.
In the not too distant future. Okay. Any other questions related to the CDBG plans? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of resolution number 2392, approving the city's consolidated plan for CDBG funds, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Laura, I'm having a hard time hearing you. I didn't even hear you that time.
I vote aye.
Okay,
Sorry,
that's quite all
I
right.
didn't hear.
you didn't hear me.
Okay.
I opened my
Next
mouth.
item on our agenda is resolution 2393, This is the EMS hardship program. I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2393.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Mr. Stevenson?
Thank you. Resolution 2393 is a resolution of the City of Salisbury, Maryland, that will repeal existing resolution number 1194 and designate LifeQuest to administrate a hardship program for our EMS services. The City of Salisbury provides emergency medical treatment and transport services. The city bills patients for their use of these emergency medical services. The city realizes that some patients who utilize these services may be unable to pay the payments for the services rendered due to various hardships. The city desires specific guidelines be used to permit the write-off of persons in these circumstances and to use LifeQuest services as the administrator for the hardship program. This resolution would designate the City of Salisbury's EMS billing service, i.e. LifeQuest services, to administer the hardship program and use the criteria established within the program to write off bills for emergency medical services provided to patients who may be unable to pay for said services due to personal hardships. All of these recommendations would come from LifeQuest and would ultimately be made, the decision would ultimately be made by myself as city administrator on a case-by-case basis. There was a question asked when this was reviewed at work session, and Mr. Cordray reported today that, the collection manager responded to our inquiry as to how subjective criteria is used when making the recommendation. She advises that for any applicant that falls short of the threshold required for the 100% assistance, they often recommend partial payment. The recommended percentages are higher and closer to the applicant is to the threshold, and often they attempt to reach a payment plan when assistance is not recommended. So there are some ways to try to slow the process down and give those folks some time to pay. But that's if they don't meet the threshold. We've had good experience with LifeQuest. They provide the service for other municipalities, and we believe this is the right direction to take.
Ms. Shields?
Yes, I see on the letter to the patient, it says, please submit a copy of your previous year tax return. And then it says, if this documentation is not provided with hardship forms, your hardship request will be denied. Well, some people do not have to do a tax return, especially those on Social Security, because some of the Social Security are not taxable. So how would they handle that? That's, to me, that's a, if they don't have to do a tax return, they wouldn't be able to submit one, you know.
It's a good question. I don't know if Mr. Cordray is able to speak to that.
Or they could check with LifeQuest. I don't want you to have an answer now, but I'm just saying.
He may do, but.
Yeah. Do you have one?
Well, I think we can just make an exception.
Okay.
Okay, as long as they can say, show, yeah, okay. Yeah, all right.
I think item 3, it doesn't directly address it because it still leaves it open the possibility that if you don't have all 5 of those items, you might get denied. But item 3,
Yeah.
you know, says if you draw Social Security,
Yeah.
provide a copy of it.
I just don't want someone, like a college student may not, he may file and may not, he might not make enough money or something. I just don't want nobody to be denied because of one.
Yeah,
Duly noted.
I had a little bit of concern about number 5. It assumes that a charity write-off was requested by the treating facility. It may be that their insurance company covered the hospital or the urgent care or wherever they ended up, likely the hospital, but doesn't cover ambulance service or didn't cover it for that for whatever reason. Maybe it's part of their annual deductible or something like that, but they still don't have the ability to pay it. So I guess looking at it on a case by case is what you're saying. They bring it back to you to look at for the approval. So those kinds of things can be taken into account. Okay.
If you go to line 23, there's just a spelling error. It should be hardship policy rather than hardship.
Hardship policy? Thank you.
Which is a roller skating term, I think.
And there's no exception for that.
Ice hockey.
Any other questions or comments?
I just want to say to Mr. Stevenson, thanks for working on this because this has been sort of on the back burner for quite a while.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, but actually the credit would have to go to Mr. Cordry. He
Well,
spent most
him
of the
too.
time, him too.
But
Most
he
of the
doesn't
time
like to be
drilling down on
recognized.
that.
He likes to stay in the chair and be quiet.
Thank you, Mr.
If you could
Speaker.
pass that on to him, please. Thank you.
Mr. Tillman, did you have something?
Yeah, just with regard to the resolution itself, I just wanted to make a couple suggestions. In the last whereas clause of that, it says that the city desires that specific guidelines be used to permit the write-off, and I would just recommend that we put of bills after that for persons in these circumstances.
Okay.
Which would be an S at the end of circumstance. And that life, and then I would say, no, the use, and to use LifeQuest services as the administrator is fine. I don't have any suggestion there. It was down in the next, the now therefore be it resolved. So after the caps, it should read that LifeQuest services be designated the city's EMS billing service to administer a hardship program. So we would just add in there that LifeQuest services be designated the city's EMS billing service, and then I would take out the parenthetical. And then in the third line, 19, it says, it begins with program, and I would just recommend that after program, comma, we say to use the criteria established by the program.
Strike the and add the two.
Yes. And then I would put in the and after the next clause, and to write off bills for emergency services. That's all. That's all.
I have one more little one.
Okay.
Line 18, following the first parenthesis, a comma after IE before LifeQuest.
Oh, we're striking the parenthetical.
Oh, we are
We're striking
entirely?
all, i.e. LifeQuest services, yeah.
Okay, then that's gone.
Unless, yeah. Okay.
I'll move to make the changes noted.
Okay.
Hold for a second.
Okay. And they are, I'm just gonna go over them one more time, just to make sure we got it. Line 14, we'll add of bills after the word off. Line 15, add S to circumstances. Line 18, add that LifeQuest, strike designates and add in its place that LifeQuest services be designated. Strike the parenthetical. On line 19, strike and, the first and, replace it with to, and add and after program. Is that right?
Correct.
Add and after program. And line 23, let's add the S in hardship. Anything else? All right. All those in favor of the amendments, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, chair votes aye. And anything else? Thank you, Keith and Tom, for your hard work on this. All those in favor of Resolution 2393 as amended, please signify your support by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Okay, next item on our agenda is Resolution 2394. This is the Heal Cities and Towns campaign. Entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 2394.
So move.
Second.
Heard Ms. Shields and Mr. Spies. All right, Mr. Stevenson?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. The city attorney advised me that he has an updated version that is hot off the press, and I think I saw them just walking that up into the lobby there. So
Okay.
bear with me a second, if you would, please. Is that your amended version, Mr. Tillman?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And Mr. Stephen, just for The version that was actually put in the book was just the pre-work session version. For some reason, what we were looking at in the work session didn't end up in the book, and we caught that when we were reviewing today. What I just handed you is back to the work session version.
Is the work session, did you say that?
In other words, the version that made it into this book somehow was not the version that you looked at the last work session. This is.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments? I know we went through each item at the last work session.
Well, I need time to compare the two now,
That's what I'm
please.
saying.
Because I did have comments on the one that was in the workbook, but I need to compare them.
The only substantive change really is in the paragraph that begins, "Now therefore be it resolved." And that the sentence that's substantive is the last sentence in that paragraph that reads, "To that end, the city of Salisbury adopts this healthy eating active resolution. This resolution shall not create any new justiciable right or cause of action by a statement of the city's purposes and goals." And the only reason we included that was just to avoid anyone making the argument that, because we adopted this healthy resolution, that somehow people were in violation of the law or policy of the city of Salisbury if they sold Cokes that were too big or something like that. We don't want that, we didn't want that inference to be drawn. So this is just making it clear that this is a resolution of a policy and not a law or a regulation that would be enforceable.
I do have an issue with the section that begins on line 106. Mapping existing food outlets, fine, draft an ordinance that will place limits on fast food around schools and in neighborhoods with overconcentrations of unhealthy food outlets. I think this is overstepping our role. I understand this is not committing us to anything or preventing anybody from doing anything, but just to have that in there, I don't think it's a free market enterprise. And if it can make money wherever they want to put it, then I think that's their decision, and that we shouldn't be in the business of regulating where fast food restaurants or any other type of business can and can't go if it meets the zoning law.
Well, it wouldn't.
It wouldn't meet the zoning laws just because it's near a school?
No, not at all. We have hundreds of specific exceptions like that are designed to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public, such as our requirement that stores like, I'm going to call it by name, the red light district cannot be, within a certain distance of churches or schools or anything like that. Unfortunately, legally, you are not allowed to prohibit them from existing in your community, but using zoning laws to dictate where they go, you can do, and that's the purpose, in fact, of zoning regulations.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
I would agree with you, but I would also agree with Ms. Mitchell on perhaps different grounds. We don't have a definition in here of what a fast food establishment is. And there is a trend, if not here, but in other places, of promoting healthy eating through fast food mechanisms such as drive-through windows. I mean, someone could consider a Salad Works a fast food because it's faster than a normal restaurant. So I think while I applaud the support of eating healthy, losing weight, preventing obesity in the first place, I think perhaps that lumps a lot of establishments together in an undefined way that is perhaps not what we intend. There's groups in California that have bean sprout on the go and juice bars on the go. So I think without being more direct, and those things are truly, I think, best left to zoning for us to make those kinds of health and welfare decisions for our citizens.
Could I recommend an amendment to this that might say, strike virtually everything in there, and say, examine policies that promote the location of healthier food options near schools and in neighborhoods?
I'm okay with that.
That would
Drafting
be,
an ordinance to eliminate fast food, I'm not okay.
Okay,
that would be fine. I'd make a motion to that effect since you can't make a motion.
okay.
What was
Thank
that
you for
language again,
completing my
Mr.
thoughts.
President?
Go on.
That language is now examine policies to promote healthier food options near schools and in neighborhoods. So the only thing that was retained was schools and in neighborhoods.
I think that better represents the gist of what we're trying to do.
The objective, yeah.
The
that's fair.
objective is more clear.
All right. Is there a second?
Yes.
Second. Somebody, second.
Okay. Any other discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Okay. And any other questions, comments,
Just line
amendments?
44, the word well-being needs a hyphen there.
Mr. Tillman, can we handle that administratively?
Yeah, we'll just correct the spelling.
All right. Any other questions, comments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of Resolution 2394 as amended, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 2395, adopting the Stash Your Trash campaign. This is the city's anti-littering campaign. Entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 2395.
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you. Resolution 2395 is a resolution of the City of Salisbury adopting the Stash Your Trash campaign as its official anti-littering campaign of the city. Wycomico River is a treasured natural resource that must be protected from pollution. The streets, parks, lawns, and sidewalks of the City of Salisbury encompass the public realm of the built environment which contribute to the perception and quality of life. Littering contributes to the degradation of the natural wealth of the health of the Wycomico River, the beauty of our city, and our quality of life. The second annual Stash Your Trash cleanup took place, and it reads a little bit differently, on April 12th. Chesapeake Tours and Promotions received $250 from Constellations Community Campaigns grant from Constellations Energy to support the purchase of litter bags to distribute to the public at the Salisbury Festival. And over 100 children ages 5 to 17 hand-sewn a community quilt to raise litter awareness, and that was also hung during the Salisbury Festival. The City Council at its February 18th, 2014 environmental work session did hear a presentation from Ms. Priscilla Timken on a recently launched Stash Your Trash campaign. The City of Salisbury seeks to partner with the Chamber of Commerce's Beautification Committee, the Wycomico County Recycling Committee, Chesapeake Tours and Promotions, PAC 14, Shore Transit, Wycomico Partnership for Children and Families, and Salisbury University's Environmental Studies and Marketing Department in their support of Stash Your Trash. This resolution does hereby adopt Stash Your Trash campaign as the city's official anti-littering campaign.
Thank you. I'd also like to invite Ms. Timken up, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, absolutely. You've got some friends with you. Bring them forward. Sure, that's fine. Lots of backpacks. All right.
Thank you all for letting us be here tonight and present to you all officially the Stash Your Trash quilt, community quilt, that was designed and hand-sewn by several of the girls that are here tonight. They represent the WISE after-school program, which is led by Miss Ardelia Ross. She's and the girls learned how to hand sew and also to become engaged in a community issue. This is really what has driven the project, was to involve our youth in a community activity and a community issue. And we chose to address the problem of litter in the community. And over 150 children participated in sewing the quilt. As I said, the WISE program, Kids of Honor, and all of the kids clubs that are represented at North Salisbury, Willards, Del Mar, West Side, Pemberton, and Fruitland Elementary Schools. And excited to say that we had over 500 signatures on Saturday at the Salisbury Festival. That was 500 people, public, who came to take the pledge, to stash their trash, and sign the quilt. And the other thing I want to bring attention to is when I spoke to you at the work session, I came away with a really personal and touching story from Councilman Spies. And he said, "Love the idea, but I have one request." I said, "That's fine." He said, "Would you please sew a pocket on the quilt?" And I said, "Sure, but you've got to explain." And he said, "My grandmother always taught me as a child to put any candy wrappings or whatever trash I had in my pocket. And then when I got home that day, put the trash in the trash can." So we have a pocket on the quilt for you, Councilman Spies, and countless times of sharing your story. So thank you, because I think that really added to the quilt, and I think it added to the intent of what we're trying to instill here is in all of us to be responsible for our trash and not to expect other people to pick it up for us. So thank you for adding that to the quilt.
Thank you very much.
That's wonderful. And I have to say that, first of all, I want to say we are so proud of you for the great work you've done. That quilt is beautiful. You've done such a fantastic job. And, we recognize that everybody plays a part in this. Everybody's got to stash their trash. Everybody's got to help to beautify Salisbury and take pride in this community. And early on, thank you. I want to hold this up for the folks at home. A stash your trash bag. I will definitely stash my trash in there. Early on, as we were identifying, priorities for us, I want to say, Tim, Councilman Spies, you mentioned this as an issue from the beginning, and I think ever since then, this has been something that I wanted to see us move forward.
I'm still whining about it, that's right.
Keep it going. And I would say that a lot of civic leaders recognize the importance of that, and I'm glad to see a lot of young people also recognizing the importance of picking up after ourselves, and how that little act can lead to so much more pride in our community, in our neighborhood. So thank you.
Absolutely.
I would
Thank
ask,
you.
is the quilt going to be on display somewhere?
We have yet to decide all of that, and it absolutely will. And we
Great.
will come up with a schedule and would invite your input in some suggestions of where it can
Super.
be
And
put.
a sign to go with it, and
And
maybe some
signs to go
trash
with
bags
it.
alongside.
Trash
Kind of
bags
pushed
to
out
go.
here in the hallway for
Great
a
stuff.
while.
Absolutely, yeah.
We
It's
have
been
more
exciting to see the city and the county wrap themselves around this whole issue. And as was mentioned in the resolution, reached out to the environmental studies program at SU and had 5 students helping me on Saturday solicit signatures. And actually, their green floor students actually designed a square. They wanted to be put on the quilt. So there are additional phases to this project that we think will help carry the message, and just kind of brand it in a lot of different ways.
I think you might have the makings of a traveling roadshow.
I was just going to say, the cityhood of the traveling quilt.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that
Absolutely.
message can be in various places, serving different neighborhoods, communities throughout the city before perhaps it finds its permanent home. But since this is a message for the entire city, I wouldn't want it hidden away
Nope.
anywhere, and it's just stunning work. And to your mentor over there, thank you so much for your work with these lovely young people who did such a fantastic job.
It's a nice visual, like you have said, to be able to carry the message and and just
May I say one
elaborate on
thing?
And then
If you're going to travel with it, my suggestion is to take it to the elementary schools, because you can teach the kids about the pocket and
Yes.
trash, and start them young, and maybe have it on display a day, and then have like a little, what they call it? I've been so long since I've been in school.
Assembly.
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 I didn't know what you were looking
Showing
at.
my age. Assembly, and talk about and have it on display, as you talk about it.
And there's a young man at the partnership who has already written lyrics. We just need to partner with someone to put a beat to it so that we will have a Stash Your Trash, rap song to go along with it. That will definitely be added to it, which I think will help as we go around and talk
theme
about the
song. I
program.
like it.
And there is one other person here that I forgot to recognize, that I definitely want to recognize, is Donna Griffin, who's representing the Chamber of Commerce. And they are a strong partner in this program, and they renamed their Salisbury annual cleanup the Stash Your Trash Cleanup Day. So again, all these different entities are using the slogan so that we all are using a uniform slogan to bring attention and support the program. It's going to take all of us to keep the flying trash from hitting our windshields on windy days and things
Love
like
to
that.
see a unified community effort where everybody's getting on the same page.
Yeah, I do know that for a while, we had a different quilt hanging out here, so I think we have the ability to do that for some period of time outside the mayor's office
Okay.
as well, to help draw some attention to it. I love the idea of it traveling around the schools and getting the notice there, but at some point, to have it here as well might be a good opportunity.
Might be a full-time job managing this
quilt.
road exhibit.
I have to hire a manager for the quilt, and I think this young lady might have a beat for you. She had one going as soon as you mentioned it.
These are talented young people, let me tell you.
Do you think we could get behind the council table and have a photograph
And get a
of the
picture?
quilt and everyone have a picture with us?
Yeah, we can take a minute to do that. Sure.
Let's
You don't mind,
memorialize
ladies?
this event.
Mr. Stevenson, you mind?
Maybe I should do it in front of the table, Mr. Spees.
Pardon me?
Might be better, easier in front of the table.
I was gonna give Shani a break and we could
Yeah, I can't
probably
stand
get behind her.
My legs, man, pains now, all down my legs.
Tall people at either end of it. Want to do that? Get the tall people at either end?
It's gonna take some tall people to hold it.
Oh, sweet. Let me go to the other end.
Yeah, everybody get in front of it. Everybody in front. Tim, you go to the other end. Relatively tall.
Denise, scoot. Yep, there you go.
Where's their mentor?
Okay, we'll get it up there.
She needs to be in here too.
No, I tried
She needs to be, she needs to be in here too. Yes, she will.
Scoot over, Lee.
Cover your face with it. Down, there you go.
Straighten up that top board.
Again?
You just looked straight ahead, don't worry about it.
Well done.
Young ladies, thank you again. This is beyond sweet.
Good job.
I did. I was gonna put something in. I conduct the meeting. Yeah. Okay, what do I have? There you go. And a receipt. No, I didn't want to put a Kleenex in there, so I put a receipt. Thanks. Who wants to do it? You good?
Okay. Thank you so much.
How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I know who she is.
Which one?
Okay. Are there any questions or comments or amendments? Is this stash your trash or is this next?
This is the attorney.
This is that, okay, got it. All right, then any comments, questions, amendments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of Resolution 2395, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Okay, next item on our agenda is Resolution number 2396, amending the Salisbury City Council regulations and rules of order. I'll entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 2396. Is there a second?
Second?
Crickets? Ms. Cohen, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Stevenson?
Thank you. Resolution 2396 is a resolution of the City of Salisbury amending the Salisbury City Council regulations and rules of order. I had trouble getting that one out because the Historic District Commission is just the opposite, rules and regulations. Whereas subsection SC 2-6 of the Charter of the City of Salisbury provides that the City Council shall determine its own rules and order of business, and whereas the City Council of the City of Salisbury has previously adopted regulations and rules of order by resolution, and there are a number of them listed, the most recent being Resolution 2251, where the City of Salisbury has periodically amends its regulations and rules of order. Now therefore be resolved that the City of Salisbury, Maryland, the City of Salisbury Council regulations and rules of order are hereby amended by addition of new section as shown in attachment A, which deletes, struck through, and the additions are underlined. Do you want me to go through all that, Mr. Council President?
No, we've been through
Thank
it.
you.
Everyone else says thank you, too.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been through all of these.
I would like to make an amendment, however.
Okay.
Under number 2, attendance and participation at council meetings.
Yes.
About mid-paragraph, it says, "Any council member may participate in work session meetings via any appropriate and available electronic means such as telephone or video conference, etc." I would like to move that it read, "May participate in work and budget session meetings." The reason for that is our budget sessions are called budget work sessions, and just to alleviate any confusion that it applies to both regular work sessions and budget work sessions, since budget sessions is referred to in the second line of that portion. So that way there wouldn't be any confusion that somehow budget sessions are excluded, because we have had that happen before.
Distinct type of meeting, understood.
I would
Okay.
offer a second to that.
All right, we have a proposed amendment and a second. Any other discussion on the amendment? All right. All those in favor of the amendment, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Any other amendments, questions, comments?
Yes, under, and I apologize, first of all, for being late for the meeting, and secondly, I'm looking for the section on, I had it marked earlier, but I'm having difficulty finding the mark, regarding the time limit.
It's throughout, there's a bunch of them, but the one that was changed, I think, was public input 6F.
Okay.
The one where it was added.
Thank you. Okay, well, the one that I'm looking at, it deals with the council members speaking for up to 5 minutes. So what I was referencing dealt with the public speaking.
6F. 5F is, I think, the council members, and there's been no change to that.
There we go, thank you, I was on the wrong F.
No problem.
And in conjunction with this, I'm going to ask something a little unusual, and that is to revisit one of our work session minutes, because I don't mind that this is in here to cement the practice, but the work session minutes declared that members of the public were unable to speak to an item until the end of the meeting after the vote was taken. That has not been the practice of the council. It wasn't under me, it wasn't under Louise Smith, it wasn't under her predecessor. So the only change I think that ever took place, or two changes that ever took place on public comment was back in 2003 or 2005, public input, general comments were at the beginning of the meeting and they were shifted to the end. But people could always speak to a resolution or always speak to a reading of an ordinance. Then secondly, later on, a different methodology was tried with ordinances where people didn't speak at the first reading. They spoke at a public hearing that took place in between first and second reading, and then I think they could still speak at second reading, if my recollection is correct. When I became president, we changed it back to the previous way, and people could speak at either reading. So I just wanted to clarify if we're doing a time limit of 3 minutes per comment, and that was always able to be extended by consensus of the council. And usually we didn't, during our time, I just asked people to limit it to 3 to 5 minutes. And with one or two exceptions, I think they pretty much adhered to that. So I don't have a problem with doing this, but I would like to ask the council's indulgence to reconsider the vote on the seventh work session minutes to strike the statement that it had been the practice of the council not to have the public speak until after we voted, because that was not the practice.
Okay. We did vote on that, but I definitely think we could, I mean, do you want to bring that item back onto our agenda, like at the end of the agenda tonight?
That would be fine.
We could do that.
Or right after this would be fine, while it's fresh in our mind, get it off the table. That rationale wasn't placed in here, but
I don't know where that comment occurred. I hope it wasn't me, but it wasn't, I don't remember it. I remember a conversation about that.
Well, it's
and you've definitely explained at council meetings
Sure.
exactly what the history was. So.
Sure, but I just didn't want it to be in writing in our minutes.
Oh, I
because then
understand.
the public might think, and it's not, just for my term
Sure.
as president, but, my predecessors as well, allowed that input. The only thing that the public didn't comment on during the meeting was the consent agenda, and I often explain, if anyone would like to comment on that, let us know, and we will simply pull it from the consent agenda so they could do so.
Sure. So we can definitely do that at the end of the meeting tonight. The one other thing that I would note is in 6F, this, articulates, it doesn't necessarily create that opportunity. I mean, especially if it's been the practice, but this articulates that council president shall accept public comments from citizens during council consideration of an item. So throughout our agenda, and, outlines the details of how that's done. But it also said, in addition to a discrete time to be set by council president during the meeting, and this is stricken in this version, but the intent of that was so that we could still have comments at the end of the meeting, general comments on items that are not in the agenda at the end of the meeting. I'd like to continue that practice, so I'd entertain a motion that would add the stricken component which says, in addition to a discrete time to be set by council president during the meeting. Is that murky clear?
Yes, I would prefer language that simply said, in addition to a general comment period.
Okay.
For citizens to address items not on the agenda. Or just a general comment period, because sometimes after we take the vote, then somebody wants to speak to an item, and we've never had a problem with that either.
Right.
So I would move that we include language after the second line of F, where it says consideration of an item, comma, in addition to a general public comment period.
Okay.
And then a punctuation mark called a period.
Period. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on the amendment? All right, all those in favor of the amendment, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
I think that does an even better job of expressing the intent there.
I'd like to address paragraph F as well. Right in the middle of the paragraph, it says comment upon the comments made by a member of the public. I'd like to make that second word, comments, into the word remarks, if we could. Commenting upon the comments.
Comment on
sounds
comment.
a little redundant.
Like period on period?
There you go.
Got it.
And down a little farther where it says logged and tracked, just take the commas out of that sentence.
I'll second that
Okay.
amendment.
All right, we have an amendment and a second. Any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Any other amendments, changes, questions? All right, thank you, everyone. Hearing none, hearing none, I'll call the question on Resolution 2396 as amended. Please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay, next item on our agenda is Resolution 2397. This is adopting the five-year capital improvement plan for fiscal year 15 through 19. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved for discussion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Seconded for discussion.
Okay. There is a motion and a second. Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you. Attached, you'll find a copy of the capital improvement plan for the 5-year period FY15 through FY19. The CIP was presented for review and comment during the council's April 7 work session. The CIP represents the city's multi-year plan for maintenance improvement of its publicly owned infrastructure. The CIP prioritizes the city's maintenance needs for transportation, stormwater management, parking, and water and sewer systems. It also outlines the improvement and replacement needs for the city's public buildings and major equipment across all departments. In total, the capital improvement plan predicts expenditures over that 5-year period of $87,852,540. And it did break those dollar amounts out in Table 1 on the memo. I took the liberty of providing a program summary for all of the various departments, but I think that would be certainly too much for me to read into the record right now, so I'll move on to the resolution. Resolution 2397 is a resolution of the City of Salisbury adopting the capital improvement plan for the 5-year period FY15 through 19. It is important for the city to develop a short-range plan showing its capital needs and setting forth a plan for financing those costs. The development of such a plan helps to ensure the city's short-range capital needs are being addressed in a reasonable manner, helps place those needs in priority order, and helps anticipate the resources that will be available to fund those needs. Staff has developed the attached 5-year capital improvement plan for the period covering, again, FY15 through FY19. Council received the capital improvement plan and finds that it reflects the needs of the city as can be best and reasonably anticipated. Adopting this FY15 through FY19 CIP does not obligate the City of Salisbury in any way to any spending for any or all of the projects. And we did review the CIP during the April 7 work session. I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
I'm talking to, we have a new member on the council, and I pretty much understand the capital improvement plan. Obviously, there's a serious robust catalog. But I think, I don't know if we went in depth at a work session. I can't remember when we did it at a work session where we went through this book here. Did we do that?
It was a very light.
It was an overview. The council had received the information and everything was available to you. I did a brief overview and provided an opportunity to try to field questions. We had staff available at that time if there were any particular questions for a
Did you
department.
receive any questions since you made that presentation?
No, ma'am.
None whatsoever.
No, ma'am. Only a request that the document be provided in a better format. It was a little fuzzy.
So because I can't remember, with my condition right now, I can't remember. But I understand the CIP, but I didn't know if there was any more questions. And if you have not received any, since we received it was the one with the clip on it.
Yes, ma'am. The only thing I was asked to do was to update the CIP to reflect the $70,000 that was shown in the CIP for FY15 for improvements to the phone system here in the government office building.
Right. That's right.
As you know, the council
did,
by way of budget amendment, funded that so that we could go ahead and make those improvements in FY14. So those changes were made and the dollar amounts were
So in
changed.
all fairness, if we had the opportunity to ask questions prior to the meeting, I didn't have any questions, really. I saw the projects I was interested in the CIP. And I know it's just a plan, not something that's like the Bible or written in stone, you know. You can always change it.
That's right.
periodically. From
Yes,
my
we
understanding
certainly
over
would
the years.
have made every effort to field any questions that we might would have
Okay,
received.
that's all I need to know.
Mr. Stevenson, I've been through it, and there's a lot there. There's a lot to understand in just in terms of our strategy for addressing capital needs over the next 5 years. I think there are a lot of great things in there, and a lot of things that I know there have been a lot of changes, particularly from Public Works over the years, addressing things that had been left on there that were not seen as priorities, so have been removed. I would just ask, this is me personally, and maybe because it's my first CIP, I would like a little more time. And reviewing the charter and reviewing our code, I see, and I could be wrong, but our attorney's not here. But the only obligation that we have is to, you have an obligation to submit a capital plan as part of the budget to us, and we have an obligation to adopt a capital plan as part of our budget. But it doesn't seem that there needs to be a determination made at some certain date prior to the adoption of our budget on June 15th. So I think we've got a little time. I could be wrong, but I think we've got that time to review it. And I don't need much, but I would like a few more weeks with it.
The only reference that the clerk and I saw in the city charter was the requirement to provide a capital plan to the council by that April 15th date. And I know the council asked that going forward we try to provide the CIP sooner. We did start working on the CIP in August of last year. It took us this long to get it together and get it to you. I will tell you that you'll see it sooner next year. So there's, so far as I know, and perhaps Mr. Tillman would weigh in otherwise, but I don't know of any requirement for you to take any action on it tonight.
Yes,
Mr. Day,
And then,
I also would like some more time. Traditionally, we have received the CIP in December, and I am not sure whether it's an ordinance that took place somewhere else where there was a reference to the timeline of the 5-year plan as opposed to just the capital plan that goes with the budget. So I apologize that I don't know that off the top of my head. However, when we got it, we had it in electronic form, and the shading, because of where it went through the scanner, made it really difficult to read totals and things like that. I found that, especially in a limited time frame, difficult to work with. So I would, unless we find that date, and I believe if it's what I think it is, I believe we're already past it anyway. So I would, just say, how much time do you need? Because today, the city clerk was kind enough to supply us with the electronic version that's easier to read. And we also have the handy dandy, and I'm not ashamed to say that sometimes I need something in a hard copy. if that's an age thing, I'm not ashamed.
I wouldn't.
And I make my living by computers, so, but sometimes hard copies are a good thing.
Yeah.
So I would just say, name your time frame, if it's 2 weeks from tonight or, at the same time as the budget or whatever, but I certainly would appreciate the additional time so I can now read totals that are not grayed out.
I'd recommend 2 weeks from tonight. That's my timeline. And again, I've been through every single page and every single project, and it still takes, I still want to go through it maybe 2 or 3 more times. And again, exciting things, good things for our city, but I think every project ought to be reviewed, and I look forward to continuing to think about the strategy of how we address our capital needs.
Okay, then I would make a motion that we table this until our May 12th legislative meeting.
Is there a second?
And I'd like to make another comment.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Ms. Shields?
I want to say this, and I'm going to keep saying it for a long time. We have this plan here, and we had some more plans. I know I've been here almost 10 years. And we need, as a council, our responsibility to me, if we're concerned about what's in this plan to move forward, we need our goal-setting sessions. We need to take this is a perfect, to me, roadmap to look at what the departments want and look how we can fund it and just digest this plan. And even if it's not the new plan, at least we'd have this one to go by for in question our department heads or the administration on, well, how are we going to reach this goal? This is a great idea, or how can we reach this goal? Because we're not going to reach everything in this plan, but at least have 1 or 2 or 3 that we know we could reasonably fund in a short term than a long term. But this is a perfect Bible for what we want to see done in our departments. And we need to have our goal-setting sessions and use this as a guideline where we can sit around the table and really digest this thoroughly to come up with some more ideas to help with the next plan that you have to do when you want to start the next plan.
Well, and I think my position on goal-setting session is clear.
Yes,
but,
it is. Yes, it is.
But in addition to that, I think it's worth mentioning that in our code, the capital plan, the 5-year capital plan, is discussed in several sections and always as a way to implement our comprehensive plan. And it refers interchangeably to master plan and comprehensive plan, but it's talking about our comprehensive planning document required by the state. So this is a tool to implement and address not only council's goals, but the broader adopted master plan for the comprehensive development of our community.
Helps do everything, really.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it is an important step in that process of getting toward implementation.
Yes.
And then drill down further and you get to an operating plan or an operating plan and budget for one particular one particular fiscal year. So I'm all in support of that.
Okay, thank you.
If I may attempt, excuse me. What we're talking about here is, without saying the words, is priority-based budgeting and getting our priorities out in front of the budgeting. We had some discussion around the timing of this, and previously we were getting, I know there's been a lot of turmoil, and I'm not complaining about that at all, but when we have that in advance of when the mayor starts his budget, it allows us to all come together and have those decide what those priorities are and look at, because these are the big ticket items. The other things are the day-to-day that have to happen anyway, excuse me. But I think that in scheduling our goal-setting session that we're talking about, we should work with the administration to find out when we'll have that next capital improvement plan and schedule that soon after.
You're right, because it would be a nice pattern there of setting goals, developing the capital plan, adopting the operating budget, adopting the annual budget.
The trifecta.
The trifecta, and in that order.
Mr. Day, would you like us to begin to call your questions over the next 2 weeks, or do you want 2 weeks to try and come up with your questions? How would you like staff, how would you like
If
me to
there are
direct
any
staff to prepare?
questions, and there may be some from me, I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I would say that it would be best to have those to you, close of business Monday, not next Monday, so that you have a week to develop responses to them. So we have a week to get information, and you have a week to respond.
Okay.
Is that fair?
I would say send them through the clerk, and we'll get them out to the departments. Do you want the answers back to you as the questions come in? You want us to wait and bring those answers to work session or to legislative session? I apologize.
If possible, before, but
Okay.
if not, at legislative session.
All
Okay, so we have a motion to table until May 12th meeting? Until the May 12th meeting. Any other discussion? All in favor, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We'll see this again in 2 weeks. Okay, next item on our agenda is Charter Resolution number 2398. I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2398.
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you. Resolution 2398 is a resolution to amend Article 3, Section SC 3-4, and Article 9, Sections SC 9-1 and SC 9-3 of the Charter of the City of Salisbury, Maryland, to change the requirements for the appointment and removal of the city solicitor. The Charter of the City of Salisbury may be amended as outlined in subsection SC 21-1 and SC 21-2, and in subsection 4, subtitle 3 of the local government article of the annotated Code of Maryland. The City of Salisbury has decided that it is in the best interest of its citizens for the city solicitor to be appointed and removed by agreement of its mayor and council. This resolution will affect the following changes. In Article 9 under Department of Law, SC 9-1 City Solicitor, and I'll read all of this, it's not that much. There shall be a Department of Law headed by the city solicitor. The city solicitor and assistant city solicitors, as necessary, shall be appointed by, and here's the new language, the mayor with the advice and consent of the council, and serve at the pleasure of the mayor and council. The compensation for the city solicitor and assistant city solicitors, as necessary, shall be determined by the council. Additional legal counsel may be authorized and or retained from time to time by the city council. Another change is in SC 9-3. I'll read this as well. Under A, legal advisor, the city solicitor and assistant city solicitors, as necessary, shall be legal advisors to the city of Salisbury and shall have their general supervision and direction of all legal business of the city. New language, the city council and all heads of offices, departments, and agencies appointed by the mayor pursuant to SC 3-4C of this charter, and the city administrator and city clerk, who shall be appointed as provided in SC 4-2 and SC 8-1 respectively, shall have the authority to seek supervision and direction from the city solicitor and assistant city solicitors as necessary for any matter which such appointee shall determine in his sole discretion involves the legal business of the city of Salisbury, including but not limited to any matter described in subsections B through E of this section. In F, this is also new language, conflicts. Nothing herein shall prohibit the city solicitor or assistant city solicitor from practicing law outside of their service to the city of Salisbury. So long as no conflict of interest exists, and so long as the duties of the city solicitor receive the care, time, and attention necessary to ensure the accurate, expedient, cost-efficient, and dutiful execution of the city's legal needs. And then in Article 3, under the mayor, SC 3-4, under powers, C, and this is a lot here. You want me to read
You can
this?
just identify the changes.
Okay, the changes are on line 60. Language was struck that says, and the city solicitor, and subsection SC 9-1 respectively. On line 61, strike "and city solicitor." On 62, add "and city solicitor." And that would be the extent of the changes to that section. Thank you.
Ms. Shields, did you have something?
Yes. Under city solicitor, and I was assuming, I guess I assumed wrong, that we were going back because the department understood, I think it's the Department of Law, and I think that it says, the city solicitor and assistant solicitor shall be appointed by the mayor with the advice and consent of the council and serve at the pleasure of the mayor. I thought it was gonna stop at the mayor and not mayor and council.
So, I think that needs to be clarified what that means.
Please tell me
because-
what that means.
Yeah, because if it says serve at the pleasure of the mayor and council, which, forgive me for not thinking about this sooner. It's just not clear how reporting works. And
That's correct, and
what's the
what
day supervision and.
the reason why I say this is that this, to me, this position, because it's for the city of Salisbury, should not be politicized. I think if the mayor, whoever the mayor is in charge of the departments of this community, he should be able to do the day-to-day things at the Department of Law, similar to the Department of Public Works and Department of Internal Services, and you clearly define in A, what the legal advisor's duties are. It's clearly defined that he has to, the city council and all heads of offices, departments, and agencies appointed by the mayor, and that he has to answer questions for us. But I do think that they should serve at the pleasure of the mayor. But before, am I correct, it was nothing about their job description, what they did. That's why we added these lines under A, correct?
In A,
It's underlined.
yes.
It was nothing in there about who he's supposed to do and talk to and all that.
And the other concern, I think, was the confusion. Okay, I think I might have a solution here, because the confusion was about not only appointment, but then what does serve at the pleasure mean? Does that mean removal, or does that mean supervision? And I think supervision by the mayor makes sense, just like any other department, but in terms of removal, it should work similar to appointment. So what if in line 25 it said shall be appointed or removed, or maybe there's a more appropriate term for that other than removed, and by the mayor with the advice and consent of the council, and serve at the pleasure of the mayor, and stop there? Or is serve at the pleasure a confusing phrase? Can you help us out?
Yeah, if you look at SC 3-4 under powers, what happened there was, initially the city solicitor was appointed by the mayor and served at the pleasure of the mayor, which basically meant the council didn't have any say over who the city solicitor was.
Right.
The prior change switched that control from the mayor to the city solicitor. It's my understanding that the intent of the council at this point is to share control of that position.
May I clarify?
Yes. Ms. Cohen?
Back in the early days of Mayor Tillman's tenure, the city solicitor was appointed solely by the mayor and dismissed solely by the mayor. That was then changed in, I think it was either 2003 or 2005, somewhere in that time frame, to be an advice and consent position, but the termination was not changed. It was still solely the mayor, and I can tell you that one of the biggest comments I heard from people was nobody who's running a department should be terminated solely by one person. So to change this, I actually like the information. Serve at the pleasure typically means that the person serves that person, the department head, I'll put it that way. Serve at the pleasure means you are supervised and you can be terminated by that person or body. The city administrator, for example, served at the pleasure of both mayor and council, even though it was, again, an advice and consent position, because the council is heavily reliant on the city administrator. I actually like the language that Mr. Stevenson had previously brought to us that said, shall be appointed by the mayor and council. This is a little bit different than the rest of our department heads, not just because it's an employee, but because the city solicitor is integral to the work that the council does. And that was why the change was recommended previously, because you cannot have this council cut off from legal access in any way, shape, or form. And then to say, and serve at the pleasure of the mayor and council. One, that makes a parallel, and two, it makes a partnership, which was why I brought this up last year.
Right, but I think parallel is good when we're talking about appointment and dismissal.
I think so.
And I think SC 9-3A addresses all concerns that might come up related to access. So the only issue is sort of the management, which is the job of the mayor.
Which is dictated by the rest of the charter, because nothing in this section ever relieved the mayor of his authority or responsibilities to supervise the city attorney for the execution of his administrative duties. And likewise, it ensured that the council had its responsibilities as defined by the rest of the charter to work with the city attorney for the execution of legislative duties. There are other parts of the charter that say this is what we do for a living.
So in interpreting serve at the pleasure of strictly addresses dismissal then, based on what you're saying.
Well, it also addresses the access, because again, but I mean, that phrase has typically been applied in the termination scenario.
From a legal point of view, serve at the pleasure of means you have the power to terminate that individual.
Okay.
And if you look, I was going to refer you under the remainder of section 3-4, it says the city administrator and the city solicitor shall serve at the pleasure, and it might be better to use the exact language that's used elsewhere in the charter and say shall serve at the pleasure of the mayor and a majority of the full council.
Actually, I had that as a note for an amendment.
Yeah, so in other words, we could add that back at 9.1. It says shall serve at the pleasure of the mayor and council, but it really is a majority of the council, meaning a majority, if they vote to terminate the city solicitor, can do so. But that language is not intended like who you are serving. But legally, the city attorney's obligation is to serve the city.
So to Ms. Shields' concerns, this doesn't in any way mean that the council will be able to dictate the work program of any department head, including the city solicitor.
Absolutely not. That is not what that language,
I
and that
think
language
was-
is commonly used.
But I think that was the concern.
Well, the concern I have is that what has happened with any of these positions, like it becomes politics enter. And with something as sensitive as our legal department, politics should not enter something as important as our day-to-day legal business of this city. And when we allow politics to enter it, this is when we have problems, with charter changes and all this stuff. I think it should remain like it originally was, the mayor. I do not think that the majority, because you can get a supermajority like we did before. If they didn't like something or something went wrong, they can go and do away with the lawyer or whoever. I just think that it worked before, and I never have a problem getting access to the attorney. I never did. But I went through the chain. I went through the city administrator for my questions, and they got back to me. So I guess I'm out of that loop. But I have a problem with the majority of having control over terminating someone. I just have a problem with that. And I also think this brings up another idea also, because of politics, we need to look at a future date, even the city clerk and the city administrator. Are we gonna let them serve at the pleasure, or should we treat them like regular employees, where if somebody don't like what they're doing, they can get rid of them, and just like that? So we need to look at a lot of this wording. But right now, I think it should be served at the pleasure of the mayor, and his duties are outlined, that he has to talk to us, or whoever wants to call him, or whatever, he has to answer that.
But I think that would allow him to, and I know Ms. Mitchell has indicated, that would allow the mayor, him or her, whoever's in that position, to remove the city solicitor without council playing any part. It depends on how you interpret that phrase, and that phrase legally, as Mr. Tillman's saying, is to be interpreted as has the ability to terminate.
So in other words, when
Supervision will still, based on this, based on how it's written, supervision will still take place will now take place by the mayor, through the mayor's office.
how about any other department, how we handle that?
The same.
I would again say that I like the language. I would ask Mr. Tillman, should it say at least a majority so that it's not prohibitive of it being unanimous or 2/3 supermajority?
Yeah, Mike.
To say, shall serve at the pleasure of the mayor and at least a majority of the council.
I think when you're taking a vote like that, that's the minimum. I mean, that's the exact language used for the city administrator.
Elsewhere, we just say a majority of the full council.
Well, yeah, and
So,
the
Mark.
majority of the full council means that all five have to be here.
No, it doesn't.
No, majority of the full council, okay, that was my,
There's three
actually
here
a
that
question.
the
Means
majority
you
of the full
requires
council.
3 to vote. What that avoids is if 3 people show up at a
There's
meeting
3.
one night, which would be a quorum, 2 could not terminate the city administrator or the city solicitor.
You need 3.
In other words, you need 3
3.
votes in order
No
to
matter what.
terminate those people.
Yeah.
That's what that means.
That's what I wanted to clarify, to make sure that it was not, because before it just said a majority, it didn't say a majority of the full council.
Right, and what it
So
does somewhere
it's a
else.
majority of those
Yeah.
here and their, members here and
You're right.
voting, the president voting.
Ms. Shields, I think what's being proposed here reflects what the situation we have with the other department heads. I think that's what's written here. I know it's written in such a way that, the plain English interpretation of serve at the pleasure of, while it, in my mind would include termination or dismissal, legally it sounds like it's exclusively termination or dismissal.
Since I've never been part of termination, never. Because to me, that comes under administration duties. I've never been part, wouldn't want to be a part of it. That's the problem I guess I'm having. It comes under administration, it should stay underneath administration. That's how I feel. It comes under administration, the departments come under administration, it should stay underneath administration. And I don't agree with this wording. I don't agree with that. I still say mayor, pleasure, mayor. Now, I've got you all to agree with that, so I'll probably lose the vote, but I'm not voting for this resolution as it stands right now. And I'm not gonna take no more time, because it's 8:05.
Well, that isn't how it works though,
I
for
mean-
the city administrator or,
And we need to look at that
I wish,
down the line.
I wish to make a motion, please, that line 25 and 26 be written to read, shall be appointed and the mayor, shall be appointed by the mayor and a majority of the full council, and serve at the pleasure of the mayor and a majority of the full council, period.
can I offer a friendly amendment?
No, please.
Could we just combine that to say, shall be appointed by and serve at the pleasure of?
That's sure,
mayor.
shall be appointed by and serve at the pleasure of the mayor and a majority of the full council.
Hold on for a second.
Okay.
So what does that mean?
So that would mean that the city solicitor would be a department head who is supervised, much like the city administrator, by the mayor, but who is appointed like the city administrator through a process of the mayor appoints and we offer our advice and consent.
Well, I'd like to get a distinction from Mr. Tillman on that. I don't think advice and consent are the same thing as saying and between mayor and council. My understanding of mayor and council, or in this case, mayor and a majority of the full council, is that this is a partnership where if there was a request for termination, for example, it could be initiated by the council or the mayor. If a termination did happen, an appointment could be initiated by the council or by the mayor, that both sides could bring names to the table. And then they would reach agreement on what's been brought to the table.
Okay.
I would like to get the distinction because I think that partnership is important to this position.
I think that's important too, and I want to hear his interpretation, but yeah, we also have to be clear about what the process would be. And I think it would still require, again, a vote of the full council and the signature of the mayor. We agree on that, that if it works either the way you just described or with mayor's appointment and advice and consent, that it would still require both a majority of the full council and the signature of the mayor.
I think, well, if it were the way that I've made the amendment, as I said, the process could be initiated by either one, but in the end, both sides would need to agree.
Okay.
With advice and consent, it is always initiated by the mayor. And I don't think with this position, which is so critical to the needs of the council, that should be a unilateral process even at any point in it.
I agree. I'm fine with that going either way, as long as that's
I
how
think
you would interpret
your
it.
understanding and Mrs. Cohen's understanding are accurate, yes.
So
If you have to decide which way you want to go.
how do we handle other departments, please? Ask me. How do we do that?
We do it by advice and consent, but I think this is
How
specialized.
do we handle, who does the majority of the legal work? Who talks to the majority of the legal work? Isn't it done by the administration? Am I wrong somewhere?
You know, I've heard that argument, and it's actually true that 80% of the work, is administrative, but none of that work gets done without the legislative decision-making process.
I still say that's why we have work sessions, so they can bring it to us. And I think with the new way of the attorney working with the department heads to make sure the resolutions are correct prior to coming to meetings, except for tonight, I'm not voting for it. If y'all going to go for this talk, you go ahead. I'm not supporting the way it's written. And I don't want to hold up the meeting because it's getting late. You all take a vote. I'm going to say nay because I'm not supportive of that. I've always felt that the departments, it's Department of Law, and all the departments should fall underneath the mayor. I feel this way. I felt this way ever since I've been dealing with the city council. Prior to me even being on city council, I always thought that the departments were under the mayor's jurisdiction. And I'm not going to change the Department of Law. I'm not going to do it. And I think we're going to have the same problem in the next couple of years. If somebody don't like somebody, they're going to try to get rid of them. And I just think that's why I'm not supporting this. And I think also we got the same problem with the city clerk and the city administrator. We don't like them, we might get rid of them, I just say, I have a concern of us even being involved in personnel issues anyway. I'm not the human resources. So go and take your vote so we can get out of here.
I don't think it would involve us in personnel.
Well, what is this when we being over the department? In that personnel, any of personnel person, any employee?
No, he is not an employee.
What is it?
He's a contractor.
Was a contract, we still would have jurisdiction over a contractor. I don't think we're supposed to handle it. I think it should never been changed in the first place, and it was. And I thought we were going back to where it was, and it seems like we got little wording in here that we're still going to have say in his day-to-day stuff.
I don't think
And
so.
I bet you do. Bet you $1 million for headache.
But I don't think that's what the amendment said, and I don't think that's
It
what the
says at
charter.
the pleasure of the majority of the council, which can be 3.
Which is.
And we get 3 people in here.
It would take 4. Because
Say
it
what?
would be a partnership between, it would take 4 because it's the mayor and the council. And that's what what I was proposing, because I think, looking in hindsight, you don't want to say to somebody, yeah, you can use my car, and then have them drive it all over and then complain that, you ran up the gas bill. There's both a responsibility, accountability, the access issue. This is a very different position. And I don't think this council should be a subjugated branch of the executive branch. We are a separate branch. And since we don't have the abundant funding to have our own legislative services department the way Annapolis does, or a set of staff that serves us legislatively the way our delegates and senators do, and our congressmen and our senators do, this makes the most practical sense. And it also fosters speaking of political and personal, that if there is such a conflict, people still have to come to the table. They still have to sit down together to make these decisions, whereas I think it actually reduces the political aspect of it. It maintains a true partnership between the executive and the legislative branch. For the last couple of years that it's operated under the change, the main thing that changed was the hiring and the firing, and one other thing, which was the day-to-day supervision, because that sounded way too much like it was an employee. The rest of the charter says who's going to dictate the city solicitor's time. If it's administrative, it's going to be the mayor, because he is, by charter, in charge of administration. But if there are legislative things that need to be done, and the council wants to initiate it, then they would work with the city attorney to do that. Otherwise, I feel as though the rest of the argument is that the city council's job here is to be an adjunct to the administration, and I don't think that that is, really good government. There needs to be that separation. The duties are dictated by the rest of the charter, as well as, the points that are in here. The supervision ladder didn't change.
Again, I say that I disagree. I'm going to vote nay, and you 4 vote yes, and so we can move forward.
Well,
I do not
making
agree
some
with this. Don't try to
assumptions
convince me. I'm getting old now, set in my ways. I'm not agreeing with this charter change.
I don't think it's a matter of trying to convince you.
Yeah, I
think
just
it's a
want
fair-
to move forward. I just want you to move forward.
It's a reasonable argument to be having, though, because I think the other thing that's worth noting is that if you look in SC 3-4, the powers of the mayor, the thing that changes here is that it's shifting, and the city solicitor an exception to the way the mayor creates his administrative staff, identifies the people who would be in that position, and shifts them out of that exception category into something more like the city administrator's position, which I think, while you may disagree with how that's done today, I think is more in line with the sort of partnership that we want to have between the legislative and executive bodies of this government.
Could I say a few things?
Yes.
Starting with that section you just pointed out on line 62, shouldn't that just be a period and a new sentence so there's no confusion? The city clerk shall serve at the pleasure of the full majority of the council. End that sentence.
Yes, actually, I caught that too.
The city
I was
administrator
going to
and the
make an
city
amendment
solicitor
to
shall
that
serve
effect.
shall serve at the pleasure of the mayor, and then continue on. So there's no confusion there.
You probably should make that, if you're going to do that.
I was
just
going to
go ahead and
make that as an
after we
amendment.
deal with this.
Yeah.
In other words, the next one, all other department heads shall serve, you could make that a separate sentence too, I think.
Okay.
Could we take care of this amendment first, because I actually have a couple of other questions and possible amendments.
Yes, we do have the amendment, which says, on line 25, after as necessary, shall be appointed and serve at the pleasure of the mayor and the majority of the full council. period. Did I get that right?
Yes, shall be appointed by and serve at the pleasure of the mayor and a majority of the full council, period.
Okay. All those in favor of the amendment,
Wait,
please.
could you say that again? I still don't.
In line
Line
25 and 26,
As necessary, comma, shall be appointed by and serve at the pleasure of the mayor and a majority of the full council.
Okay. So we're basically striking the new language that was put in there. Sorry, I was out when that was offered.
the underlined part, yes.
Yes, the underlined part. And then adding in the full council. A majority of the full.
A majority of the full council.
Which was how a First Amendment pretty much read, the original text of the amendment. And then
Lost track.
the change was a Second Amendment.
Where's the original? Let me see.
I don't think we even have that. That's
Yeah,
been
we don't have
changed
it
a
with
couple
us,
times.
but Mr. Stevenson had brought it
I've seen the original.
at one of the work sessions, and it said mayor and council. The city attorney
It didn't
has
say the pleasure.
provided us,
It
yeah.
didn't say the pleasure. Not the one I had. Not the one I had.
Need a second?
No,
No, it's,
I believe you did.
there,
already.
yeah, you did second it.
Okay,
Any other discussion on the amendment?
not that.
All right, hearing none. All those in favor of the amendment, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
I'm abstaining.
Okay.
There's too many changes to process at this point. We've had 3 separate versions tonight, and now we're amending those.
I don't know which one to read either.
Well, should we take this back?
Got
to
3 of them right
Bang
here.
it out?
No,
Got 3 right here.
we've done this a number of times. I'm ready to
I think it's
make a
pretty
decision.
straightforward. Okay.
And I'm
Other-
sorry, did the chair vote aye?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Other questions?
Yes.
Mr. Spees?
I want to know about lines 25 and 27, what the phrase, or, yeah, what does the phrase "as necessary" modify? Is it the assistant city solicitors in each case?
The question is, that is the intent, yes. In other words, right now, we have no assistant city solicitor.
I understand, but it is meant to address strictly the assistant city.
Yes, that was the intent of that language.
I would make a motion to the following effect. After the word solicitor, the second word solicitor, in line 24, add a parenthesis. After the word solicitor on 25, add a sub-parenthesis before the letter S, add a parenthesis, sub-parenthesis after the letter S, then a comma.
Mr. Spees, I
Yes.
think you might be using, your line references are not the version that was given to you most recently.
Which version is it?
The version with a
has
corrected
Article 3.
title, the second version has, the line numbers are slightly different, but it has the content is the same. It was a corrected title.
I think you are on this.
In the title, it says,
It's the hand.
No, I'm following.
I've got 2
Yeah,
handouts.
He's
on the
looking
right
at the right one.
He's got the right one.
It does he?
Yeah, he's
Okay.
got the right one.
Well, then I got lost when I was trying to follow what was on line 25.
I think the intent was to put in the word, in the title, Assistant City Solicitors, it was to put the S in parentheses. Is that correct?
As well as put "and assistant city solicitors as necessary" in parentheses, to divorce them from the main city solicitor, because "as necessary" does not apply to the city solicitor. Is that correct? Is that where we're?
It was not intended to apply to the
Okay, well,
citizens.
let's make it so it
Okay.
doesn't apply.
I misunderstood what you were trying to do, and I just lost you on the line.
This
reference.
is where you get into kind of the grammar versus the legal punctuation. I know that particular punctuation has been in the charter for 14 forevers. I wondered the same thing, Mr. Spees, when I saw it. But it was my understanding that that was accepted legal phraseology for saying the city solicitor and assistant city solicitors as necessary. We might want to do something that says the city solicitor and any assistant city solicitor as needed. And we might want to set this off in a way that's not grammatically normal for us regular folk, to say the city solicitor, comma, and assistant city solicitors as necessary, comma.
Okay. Could that be interpreted as applying to both the city solicitor and the assistant city solicitors?
Can I ask a question?
Not that way.
Not that way?
I'm just saying, if Mr. Tillman
Well,
says that this is accepted legal punctuation to indicate that the city solicitor exists and that assistant city solicitors are just as we acquire them when they're needed.
Yeah.
Well, my intent here is to divorce the words "as necessary" from the city solicitor and have it apply only to the assistant city solicitors.
Could it just read the city solicitor and any serving assistant city solicitors, or any appointed assistant city solicitors, or any approved assistant city solicitors?
Let me ask you
Pull
this.
the words "as necessary"
Let me
right
just
out of
ask-
there.
Exactly.
Let me just
That's
ask a
all.
question, because this is only referring to the compensation being set. So the compensation of the city solicitor really is an agreed upon hourly rate as part of a contract. And that is approved by the council. So really what they're referring to there is that the compensation of the city solicitor and assistant city solicitors as necessary shall be determined by the council.
It also applies to the appointment, which is in line 25. So it applies to both, unless you have a copy that I don't.
No, you're right. So again, I just wonder why we can't strike "as necessary."
I think what we ought to do, but I have a good suggestion. Why don't we eliminate the reference to assistant city solicitors with regard to appointment there? I don't think you need that.
So who's going to appoint the city assistant city?
I think it's elsewhere in the,
Okay.
I think it's
All right.
actually in another paragraph.
I'd never thought about this, changing this before. I was leaving it the way it was.
Yeah,
so.
this is all language that exists today.
So-
It has been there forever.
I'm open to anything, but I've just, had to be honest with you, hadn't crossed my mind, so.
Well,
Bear with me, I'm slow.
The first sentence says, "There shall be a department of law headed by the city solicitor." This is why I think that it wasn't an issue before, Mr. Spees. Because we have already established that there shall be a city solicitor. We did not say that there shall be assistant city solicitors. So the "as necessary" indicates that it applies only to the assistant city solicitors.
In the second sentence.
Because the first sentence already dictates that there shall be a city solicitor.
Could we then simply strike the "as necessary" clause from line 27? The compensation of the city solicitor and assistant city solicitors shall be determined by the council?
Could I make a suggestion? If you were to change it to the city solicitor and any assistant city solicitors, strike the "as necessary," shall be appointed by the mayor, et cetera, et cetera. And then the compensation of the city solicitor and any assistant city solicitors, and strike the "as necessary."
I'm okay
Then you
with that.
cover your
Yeah.
bases.
That makes sense to me.
I'm okay with that.
I'll adopt that as a motion, thank you.
That's another way of saying the same thing.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion on that? Is that crystal clear to everybody?
I think it gives a much more clear understanding of what we were meant to.
And
mean to
the
say.
parentheses around the S at the end of assistance is no longer
No
necessary.
longer
Yeah.
necessary.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
All right,
A lot less punctuation.
I think that
that
says
way.
what you want to say.
okay.
But it was a nice drill.
All those in favor
A
of the
brain
amendment?
teaser.
All those in favor of the amendment, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Okay. Any other amendments?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Per turn.
Ms. Cohen, or Ms. Mitchell first, then Ms. Cohen. How about that? Ms. Mitchell.
Beginning on line 61, to separate in the sentence that begins the city clerk into 3 sentences by putting a period after, on line 62 after the word council.
Okay.
So it would read, the city clerk shall serve at the pleasure of the majority of the full city council, period, capitalize the. The city administrator and city solicitor shall serve at the pleasure of the mayor and a majority of the full council, period. Strike the word and, capitalize all. All other department heads shall serve continuously unless terminated pursuant to subsection SC 2-10, period.
Here, here, and amen. And I'll second the motion.
Okay, so we have an amendment and a second. Any other discussion on that?
Much cleaner.
Okay. All in favor of the amendment, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All right, Ms. Cohen, you want to take one?
Yes, please. On line 37, I'm not sure how the former text went away. It could have been a word processing thing or whatever, but in line 37, it says the city council, comma, and all heads of offices, departments, and agencies appointed by the mayor, etc. After the comma for the city council, I would like to add any of the council's individual members, comma, and then have it continue to read, and all heads of offices, departments, and agencies appointed by the mayor pursuant to SE 3-4C. And I don't know that we need the comma after agencies on 37 because
No, we don't.
I think it's, that thought goes together. So it would read, the city council, comma, any of the council's individual members, comma, and all heads of offices, departments, and agencies appointed by the mayor pursuant to SC 3-4C of this charter, and the city administrator and the city clerk, who shall be appointed as provided in SC 4-2 and SC 8-1 respectively, shall have the authority to seek supervision and direction from the city solicitor and any, I will add that in, and any assistant city solicitors, striking as necessary, for any matter which such, I would say rather than appointee, I think since we're not appointed, we're elected. It would read, which such person shall determine in his whole discretion, comma, involves the legal business of the city of Salisbury, including but not limited to any matter described in subsections B-E of this section.
Ms. Cohen?
Yes, sir.
As long as you're on a roll, do you want to look at line 32 and see what you want to do with as necessary there?
I would also add to my amendment, per the kind remarks of my colleague here, that line 32 then say, and any assistant city solicitors, striking the comma as necessary, comma.
Okay.
I'll offer a second.
Now, may I say something,
Yes.
please? This goes to prove what she just did, that we have the word city council. Y'all have the word city council in there. It means all the city council members, I thought, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So why do you have to use any individual city council member in there? Why do you have to have city council?
I'd be
Any
happy to
individual?
answer that question, Mr. Day.
Please answer that.
Let me just throw out there, you're probably going to, you may offer something different than this, but I was going to say, there are places in our charter and in our code where it does say, it does refer to the city council, talking about a decision of the body as a whole, and in the same sentence references any individual member of the council, such as the ability to put something, to request something to go on our agenda, There are other instances.
Well, if that's
Just
an instance like that, well, I think it's gonna be abused. That's my opinion. I mean, legal bills are gonna go up like they did this past couple of years, so I still think it's, the way it's still to micromanage the Department of Law. I still think it is. I still think it is. And I think some people in the public thinks it is too. So.
The key here is have the authority to seek supervision and direction from, not give it to. Because there are circumstances that each of us as individuals find ourselves in that we need advice from the city attorney. You take that away, and you're going to find a whole lot less people, fewer people running for office because they won't have access to the city attorney when something is done to them, a question comes up, because they would have to go through, not everything that concerns us as individual city council members concerns us as a municipal body.
Well, this one I would hard my own
And that was actually
Not
in
the
the
same
former charter that my colleagues who didn't like the change, it was actually in that before. And it was there to preserve that relationship of the individual members of this council to seek legal advice from the city attorney. For example, what if you're put in the position where somebody asks you something and you don't know whether or not you can talk about it with them? You don't want to withhold information from a citizen, but at the same time, you don't want to say something to the press or to an individual citizen that might put the city in legal jeopardy. That's not cause for calling the entire body together, having a closed session. It's to pick up the phone and ask the city attorney, am I able to talk about this? So it's also a legal prevention of risk management to the city to be able to pick up the phone and say to the city attorney, I need your advice on something.
I think this would also apply to a member's questions about a potential ethics abuse or an ethical question. If the member was denied the use of the attorney, where would he or she go?
To my personal attorney.
Who is your personal attorney?
That's not your business.
Oh, you mean anyone's personal attorney?
That's right.
I certainly don't have the money to run to my personal attorney every time I have a question that this city causes me to have. That's just not right to ask some member of the public who has agreed to serve in this capacity to spend out of pocket to consult with their personal attorney when they need legal advice on a city matter.
I think,
And like I said, that was in the charter before.
I think we need to move on and, because I'm not voting for this, just move on. I've said what I had to say.
I just have a quick comment. It's certainly no secret that I was not a fan of the prior change, and I too thought that we were going to go back to the way we were. I never saw any risk to or actual loss of access to the council, but if it makes people more comfortable to have that language in there, having that crossover with the mayor and the council, if we can get on with the city of business and put this to rest, I think this is better than where we are now. And so I will support it. I'm still uneasy about it, but I think it's a vast improvement over what was done 2.5 years ago. So I'm ready to move on.
Okay. Well, yeah, I agree. I think that having that protection there doesn't, I think it's a protection. You know, it articulates something. My experience has been that, you know, when I've got a question to the city attorney, you know, I can get it answered if I want it answered. And, you know, I have access to the counsel I need, and we want to make sure that our department heads have that same access. I think that's really important to articulate here as well.
But they did.
Well, right, today.
They did. They've always had so I don't know. The problem was it wasn't a problem till it was made a problem.
now it can't be a
Originally.
problem, now it's protected.
Yeah, now it could be a problem.
We'll see. I'm gonna say we'll see. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, that's the
We'll see.
idea behind this.
We'll
Put it
see.
that way.
We'll see.
Well, we have an amendment and a second. Any other discussion on the amendment? All right, all those in favor of the amendment, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Any opposed?
Yes, nay.
All right,
And one,
anything else?
yes, one last item, which would be on page 6, I'm sorry, on the second page on line 60, where it says, the city clerk, let me go back a little bit. It says, the mayor with the advice and consent and blah, 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 blah. With the exception of the city clerk, given the changes that we've made, it would still need to say, and the city solicitor, who shall be appointed as provided in SE 8-1 and SE 9-1 should stay in there respectively because of the changes that we've made in order to make it agree.
Should that apply to line 61 as well?
No, yes. No, because that's been changed to reflect these changes. The city clerk shall serve at the pleasure of a majority of the full council, period.
Okay.
The city administrator and city solicitor shall serve at the pleasure of the mayor and a majority of the full council, period. All other department heads, et cetera.
Right.
But in order to make those things agree, you have to leave in line 60, with the exception of the city clerk and the city solicitor would need to stay in, comma, who shall be appointed as provided in SC 8-1 and section SC 9-1, comma, respectively, on line 61. Those would need to stay in order to make all of this agree.
Hold on for a second.
Okay, because we're no longer doing advice and consent.
Right.
Okay.
Based on the changes tonight, that's flows.
All right, is there a second?
Yes.
There was.
Any discussion? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Any opposed?
Yes, nay.
Anything else?
No. I'm pleased to report on my end.
Okay. And hearing none, we'll call a question on the Charter Resolution 2398. All those in favor of the amended Resolution 2398, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Mr. Day, I was just going to ask, since this is a charter amendment, it really doesn't have anything to do with me, but I will ask if the city solicitor will be available for the rest of the week to go over the changes with us on the administrative side. There are a lot of changes this evening that were not done at the council work session, so I'm just checking with you your availability for going over this with us.
Yeah, we'll make time.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
And could we get a fully corrected version?
Clean version of it?
Yeah, well, absolutely.
To have
Tomorrow.
our records?
This,
Tomorrow.
we,
See what we passed.
Thank you.
for the city clerk, this also now needs to go through the state mandated process of advertising 4 times within a specific period. I believe it's within the first, at least weekly for the first 40 days. Is that right, Kim?
That's correct.
And then it takes effect after that has been executed on the 50th?
On the 50th day after passing, which is June 17th.
So, just wanted to mention that. I know that the city clerk is well aware of that. I just wanted to mention that for the public's benefit.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the FY15 budget ordinance for first reading and the setting of the date for the public hearing. This is ordinance number 2287. I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance 2287.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Mr. Tillman.
Okay, this is an ordinance appropriating the necessary funds for the operation of the government and administration of the city of Salisbury, Maryland for the period from July 1st, 2014 to June 30th, 2015. Establishing a levy for the general fund for the same fiscal period and establishing the appropriation for the water and sewer, parking authority, and city marina funds. Be it ordained by the City Council of Salisbury, Maryland, the City of Salisbury, Maryland, the amounts listed in Schedule A, operating budget appropriations, are hereby appropriated for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2014 and ending June 30th, 2015 to fund operations of the City of Salisbury, Maryland. Be it further ordained by the City of Salisbury, Maryland, that the amounts listed in Schedule B, capital project appropriations, are hereby appropriated for capital projects. And be it further ordained that the tax levy be in the same is hereby set at 0.897 per 100 of assessed value of all real property, and at 2.21 per $100 of assessed value for all personal property, subject to taxation by the City of Salisbury for general fund purposes, including debt service purposes, exclusive of revenues derived from the water and sewer fund for debt service purposes attributed to water and sewer activities. And two, all taxes levied by this ordinance shall be liens from and after July 1st, 2014, and shall be due and payable as specified in Title 14 of the Tax Property Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland as amended, and that all fees adopted by this ordinance and all other fees currently in effect shall remain so unless changed at a future date by the Salisbury City Council. And be it further ordained by the Salisbury City Council that a public hearing on the proposed budget ordinance will be held at, and I don't know if there's a date yet determined.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not in my copy.
Do you have that, Kim?
See a calendar. It's It would be May 12th.
That was May 12th.
Yes.
So it will be held, do we have a time too as well that's called for?
6 p.m.
All right. So we'll be held at 6 p.m. on May 12th, 2014 in room 301 of the City County Government Office Building, 125 North Division Street, Salisbury, Maryland. And be it further ordained by the Salisbury City Council that this ordinance shall take effect upon final passage.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, would you like to add anything?
Is this where I'm supposed to add? You're over. Or is it next? We good? Can I go through that part? No, Tom, if you'll pass those down. Just quickly, tomorrow morning you'll get the financial health of the city report from Mr. Cordry, which I think you're going to find quite entertaining, quite colorful, lots of graphs and charts, things of that nature. Mr. Cordry has worked very hard with his department to get all that information ready for you, but just very quickly, I wanted to go through. If you take a look at the second page, there was a typo on the original, and it wasn't grammatical. That's usually what the mistake that I make when writing this is a grammatical one. But under the water and sewer utility, I had transposed a number from last year's general fund over into that by accident, so you will see updated numbers there. 33 million in the general fund, 15 million, and then parking marina, and then the total. You'll see the accessible base numbers right there on the second page. You'll see the information about surplus that the city holds both in water and sewer and in the general fund. But just quickly for the public's edification and not going into quite the detail of some of the other items this evening, just looking on page 3, you will see some expense changes, which I think are important to note about about our employees. We've seen our health insurance costs decrease this year, and that will actually make it so there is no increase in employee health costs this year at all. There's a formula that it all goes through, and But in the end, it comes out at the other end with no net increase to our employees, so we're very happy about that. How did we get there? Of course, working very hard with our, wow, it's late. Jeannie Lloyd in, what department is she?
HR.
In HR, sorry, it's late. Decreased emergency room visits by our employees, decreased inpatient, I'm gonna hear it from her tomorrow, I can tell you that. Decreased inpatient admissions, decreased outpatient surgeries, improved prescription utilization, and just overall, reduced total dollars spent on claims. There was a drop in our LEOPS. Is anybody else hearing that ringing in their ears?
There was feedback on others, it's not just you.
I thought it was really late. You can see some of the increases in revenues. I'm sorry, the LEOPS and city retirement decreased by about $88,000. You can see from earlier, the communication rental tower money will come in. Our workman's compensation rebate, again, is there. Mr. Cordry and his department, almost $800,000 in delinquent personal property taxes collected over the last year. For that, he should be, you know, not the Pope is canonizing people. Maybe we should keep naming. Of course, the starting of our fire inspections unit, that's also in there for this year, and we look forward to talking to you about that. Taking a look at staffing increases, one of the things that we decided when we were putting the budget together is that we were going to abide by the recommendations of the Evergreen study so that we didn't wait 10 years and then have to lump lump huge sums of money in there. There is a one-step increase for our employees. That's about $220,000. It does not include those employees that are receiving the market increase per Evergreen on July 1st, and most of those, about 90% of those, will be in the fire department. And then you'll see it on that next, the increase to fire salaries per Evergreen. You see the money there. Mr. Molds, as we said to you during the last work session, working very hard, reevaluating every part of his department, has found 6 frozen positions that have been frozen for a while that he has deemed that he does not need anymore. The positions that are funded through all of this are a citywide public information officer. It is now critically time that we get one of those. The police crime analyst here that is not going to be funded in Safe Streets, that came over to us. A police recruiter, that's one of the positions we talked about earlier today that is being done by a sworn officer that the chief has asked us to make civilian so that that officer can go back onto the street. A park maintenance worker, an office associate in human resources. I'll probably, if you pass that, Ms. Lloyd will probably forgive me for forgetting the name of her department. Very, very much needed there. And then an office associate in the water department that was asked for. This year, of course, we are going back and going to move the tax rate to the constant yield rate. That will provide about $248,000 in revenue. And what that amounts to for a homeowner in the city of Salisbury is about 24 cents a week. So we're happy that it was not a huge increase. We still have the same situation where, because assessments have sunk so far in certain parts of our city, even with bringing up to the constant yield this year, they'll still have properties that will not have a tax increase, even though we go into the constant yield. That's how far property values have dropped. Due to the large surpluses in water and sewer, you'll see a little further down some of that spending on the wastewater treatment plant proceeds. That spending is there. But because of large surpluses in the water and sewer fund, I am again proposing this year a 2.5 decrease in the water and sewer rates for this year. If the council chooses to do that, with last year's 6.5% decrease, our ratepayers will have seen an almost 10% drop in their water and sewer rates over the last 2 years. The goal is a balanced approach where we offset increased taxes with reductions in fees, and I think that's achieved here. Just quickly going down in law enforcement, of course, the 4 COPS grant officers that came out of the federal grant are now ours. We have been putting money away for them each year, and we were very happy to do that. The 6 vehicles that the police chief asked for, bulletproof vests. You see the police recruitment position there, and the crime analysts. 2 firefighter paramedic positions that have been frozen since 2010 are unfrozen. And of course, we will hopefully break ground this year for the Brown Street Fire Station number 2 replacement. In infrastructure and neighborhood integrity, you can see money there for more abatement for noxious growth and neighborhood services and code compliance, money for our inlet hoods that are keeping pollution out of the river, curb and gutter, stormwater drain repair, Street construction, milling, and paving, our numbers beginning to climb again from the state and highway user funds, and we're happy about that. You see the lift stations there and the third paleo well from the wastewater treatment plant proceeds. And I put that in there because I've always said to each of you, and certainly to the council president, that discussion about what to do with those proceeds from the wastewater treatment plant lawsuit, which we were all in the room for, we want to have that discussion with you. So we're open to those discussions. These are the recommendations of the director and the assistant director, but we welcome, of course, that discussion with you. Downtown revitalization, that park maintenance worker assigned will probably be assigned to downtown. So basically, I ended this with exactly the way I did it last year. Due to the general accounting standards and rules that are set upon me by the general accounting rules God, the amount of surplus and how much we use is not known for 8 months after we begin and present the budget process. So I will just say that to you. 8 months goes by before we see how all this panned out. Again, also waiting for the state assessable base numbers. As you know, the city is divided into 3 parts. Go through that. That will continue. At the beginning of FY13, the city had $9.7 million in unassigned surplus. We agreed to spend about $1.5 million in surplus last year. City employees put back about $800,000. So that amount of surplus wasn't used. So you see the drop from $9.7 million to $9 million. Mr. Cordry will show you those algebraic equations tomorrow that will show our position to still be strong. I will not go into those slides right now. But in the end, I did put $1.6 million of surplus spent here on capital infrastructure expenditures, retaining of our COPS grant, moving our officers back to the streets by creating civilian positions, and then beginning the Brown Street Firehouse construction. I'm excited about this because Mr. Stevenson and Mr. Cordry have said we should be working in that evergreen study to meet those goals that they have so that we do not have to come back and in a flurry of things, have to spend large sums of money. I think our employees will be grateful. I think that they will be happy that we're continuing to do it. So I'm excited, as I say at the end of this, or actually at the beginning of it, to present this to you, and you will start work on it tomorrow with all of the departments that are scheduled for your review and questions, that we look forward to it. So if any of the 5 of you have any questions this evening, I'd be willing to take them, but I know tomorrow morning starts at 9 or 9:30 and goes all day.
Give us that half hour, please.
So I appreciate the time to do this, especially in a public forum covered by PAC 14.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for the mayor?
Yes, there is. This is perhaps really more for Mr. Stevenson.
Yes.
Maybe, but constant yield public hearing, that's a separate thing than the budget hearing. So I wanted to ask a question. If you're not deviating more than a certain percentage, you don't have to do it, because I remember my first year, we had a constant yield tax hearing because we really didn't know where we were going to end up at that stage of the game. I think it's always a good thing to have them. You have to advertise. Ms. Nichols knows this routine. But I just wanted to know whether or not we are required under the proposed constant yield to have a constant yield hearing, or whether we are exempt because we're within that variation they allow. If we think under any circumstances that we might go past that, then we need to schedule that along with the budget public hearing to make sure that we're kosher with the state.
Right now, the SSTAT, that office, you want to do that real quick, because you speak the language.
No, he doesn't. But he'll come anyway, because the mayor said so.
Mr. Cordry is our Director of Internal Services.
Good evening. There's not much to be said. We did confirm through SSTAT that we are of an exempt status at this level. Okay. And this takes us right to the constant yield rate, and it does make us exempt.
Okay. May I suggest that we just get from our friends at SSTAT what would put us into the required category, since I'm certainly not advocating that we go wahoo and hit the roof on any kind of an increase, but I think it's important for the council to be cognizant of what that threshold is.
Okay, we'll have that information for you then.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Corddry.
Thank you. Any other questions for the mayor? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 2287 for first reading. The budget ordinance public hearing is scheduled for May 12th, and we will continue with budget discussions tomorrow morning. But as for right now, this first reading of the budget ordinance 2287, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Thank you.
And if I could just clarify, whether you agree with what's been presented or not, we need a first reading in order to continue with the rest of the process in a timely fashion. So, certainly we need to pass a first reading in order to have the discussion and ultimately end up with a budget that you will either agree with or disagree with.
That's right. The next item on our agenda is ordinance number 2288 for first reading. I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance 2288.
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, this is an ordinance of the City of Salisbury approving amendment of the FY14 general fund budget to appropriate funds for additional legal and consulting fees to extend negotiations of the cable franchise agreement with Comcast. Whereas on July 24, 2012, the City of Salisbury entered into contract number RFP 12-12, the cable franchise renewal agreement with CBG Communications, Inc., and whereas under the terms of the aforementioned contract, the City of Salisbury agreed to pay CBG Communications $69,500 to provide legal counsel and negotiations, a technical review, and a community needs assessment, and a franchise fee audit. And whereas CBG Communications has successfully delivered the technical review, the community needs assessment, and the franchise fee audit, and whereas to date no agreement has been reached between the city and Comcast, and whereas CBG Communications continues to negotiate with Comcast on behalf of the city, and whereas CBG has advised that it will require an additional 50 hours of consulting work and 50 hours of legal work to reach an agreement with Comcast, and whereas the additional hours required to complete these negotiations will cost $20,000, and whereas the FY14 budget does not contain an appropriation sufficient to cover this expense, now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Salisbury, Maryland, that the city's FY14 general fund budget be and is hereby amended as follows, with an increase in the current surplus by $20,000 and an increase in the 12,000 executive mayor budget by $20,000.
Okay. Mr. Stevenson, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Part of the conversation that we've had about this in the past is related to our partnership with the county on moving forward on this. I don't know that that needs to be outlined in any way in this budget amendment, but would this budget amendment enable us to continue discussion with the county about potentially collaborating?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell?
I'm not sure if this should be open or closed. Mr. Tillman? Here, you don't have to come all the way around, I'll just turn. I'll ask it privately later.
During closed session?
Thank you. This is first reading anyway, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Any other questions? Comments? Amendments? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of ordinance number 2288, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you.
To be clear, the question had to do with contract negotiations.
Understood. Yeah, I assumed so.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
At this time, I would like to ask if we could I move to reconsider the minutes for work session of April 7th.
Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
Ms. Cohen?
Sure,
The work session minutes?
Work session
The work
minutes, which we
session
adopted
minutes.
earlier this evening, or we approved.
Well, I just made a motion to reconsider. If you'd like me to expand the motion, I can certainly do that, but the purpose of it would be, let me get back up to the top here. Slow, slow, slow. In those minutes, on lines, 90 through 94, it reads, President Day discussed the suggested changes which have not been discussed yet to the rules of order. He proposed in number 6F, under public input, to insert, quote, the council president shall accept public comments from citizens during council consideration of an item, ellipsis, close quotes, because the practice has been to group all of the public comment at the end of the legislative session, comma, thereby not allowing council to hear comments on specific items until after the voting. If we went ahead and reconsidered this, and I can combine the motion if you wish, would be to have line 92 have an extra period in the ellipsis, and to strike because the practice has been to group all the public comment at the end of the legislative session, not allowing council to hear comments on specific items until after the voting.
Yeah, can we combine that into one motion?
Wouldn't the period go outside the quote, though?
Well, no, periods normally go inside of quotes, but this is an ellipsis anyway, and to show that the ellipsis is then followed by an end of statement, you put 4 periods in. But that would just strike the because in the rationale in there, because I think since that doesn't reflect the practice, I mean, if one wants to put that in there to confirm the practice, that, you want to be sure that people don't get confused between general public comment and the ability to comment on an item, then it's great that we included that distinction in our council rules of order. But I think that explanation there says that prior to this time, that there was a practice that is not the case. I think, Ms. Gibson's been here longer than lots of folks, and she has spoken to many an item that's been on an agenda. So, like I said, this really goes back as far back as I've been watching council, which has been since, I guess, roughly 2003, 2004.
Okay. You need a second?
Mr. Spieth seconded, and if no one has objections to me combining both the request to reconsider and the actual amendment to the minutes, then I don't have a problem with that.
I'm good with that.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Okay, and we do have one request for public comment before we go into closed session. Ms. Gibson.
Kay Gibson, resident of Salisbury. I wanted to compliment the Salisbury Police Department. I want to say thank you. I had an incident today which I observed something which concerned me. When I called, they were very polite, very helpful, very concerned. They responded within a reasonable time. The 3 officers that came were very polite, again, very concerned, very professional. They took what I had to say seriously. They investigated. They reinvestigated, contacted the owners of the property, waited for the owners to get there to examine the property. I really appreciate the professional level at which they performed. All my interactions with the individual police officers in the city of Salisbury have been very, very positive, and I thank them.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson. That's great.
I'll make sure to share that with Chief Duncan.
I know she'll want to hear that. Okay. Next, I will entertain a motion to convene in closed session to consult with legal counsel. to obtain legal advice on a matter, a lease agreement. This is something that's been ongoing.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. I heard Mr. Spies. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Mitchell? Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify your support by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thanks, Bull.